Chapter 554. Yi Chen's mood was very good. Moreover, it was the kind of good from head to toe. This was because not only did Yi Chen solve the potential crisis, but he also earned 2 super beauties from history along the way. Of course, the most important thing was that Yi Chen had obtained Yu of Beech's title. Although Yu of Beech's title wasn't as real as an official's title, Yi Chen didn't really care about it. Yi Chen was a player, so he was very clear about one thing. After Lu Hong's death, the feudal lords had risen. As long as they had territory and ambition, they wouldn't listen to any general's orders. Even if it was a puppet emperor, no one would listen. Therefore, Yi Chen didn't care that his title wasn't promoted. But Yu of Beech's title was different. Although this title seemed fake, it was extremely valuable. It had to be known that the Great Han Dynasty had a very strong sense of hierarchy. When the vassal war began, Yi Chen, who had a different surname, would be a hedgehog. No matter who it was, as long as they provoked Yi Chen, they would have to bleed. To be more precise, after the vassal war began, Yi Chen would have more and more excuses to send troops because of Yu of Beech's title. Moreover, it was justified. Why? It was very simple. Yi Chen was a prince. No matter how high other people's titles were, they wouldn't be as honorable as Yi Chen. Wasn't angering a top noble a reason to send troops? Although it looked funny, it was the truth. At least in the eyes of the common people, it was reasonable. It didn't matter what other feudal lords thought. As long as the common people thought it was reasonable, it was fine. Because this was righteousness, it was justified. In other words, this was the reason to send troops. It was a battle of justice, not a battle of evil. Of course, this was a bit overbearing and a bit barbaric, but Yi Chen didn't care. After all, in this era, it was necessary to find a good excuse to send troops. Otherwise, if it wasn't righteous, it would be criticized by the common people. It was like being a prostitute and calling herself a chaste woman. Although the words were a bit crude, that was the truth. For example, Royal Uncle Lu, who had been killed by Yi Chen, Chao Ningfu, who had not yet risen to power, and so on. They were all very two-faced. Any one of them would find a fair and square reason to send out troops. Of course, if these vassals did not dare to provoke Yi Chen, then Yi Chen would have an excuse to send troops. Before Yu of Beech was conferred the title of nobility, Yi Chen could just make up an excuse, but it was a little troublesome. With Yu of Beech's noble title, things would be simple. Yi Chen would be able to come up with a bunch of reasons and send out his troop. As for the members of the Han royal family, Yi Chen's excuse of Yu of Beech was not very practical. After all, most of those people were princes on the same level as Yi Chen. But this wasn't important. What was important was that the Han dynasty's imperial family didn't have any influence at all. Besides, even if there were, Yi Chen would not be afraid. He could still find an excuse to send out troops. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yi Chen had become a prince, the #1 prince in the Great Han Empire with a different surname. This was the East Wind, and it was the banner of justice. Although it was a bit troublesome and not very straightforward, this was the rule of this era. Although Yi Chen had the ability to sweep the world, he would still follow this rule and fight for justice, not evil. Of course, this was only the benefit of Yu of Beech's noble title. If De Qiao and Xiao Qiao, the 2 princesses of the Great Han Empire, were added, then Yi Chen's reason to send out troops would be even more sufficient. For example, bringing order to chaos, cleaning up the emperor's subordinates, and so on. Even the vassals of the imperial family would fall for it. With a set of righteousness, if they refused to submit, they would fight. This was Yi Chen's plan. It was simple and crude, but it was very practical. After all, Yi Chen's strength had already been exposed in this storyline. It would be strange if the vassals were not afraid of Yi Chen. And there was only one result of being afraid. No one dared to provoke Yi Chen. Of course, when the vassals were strong, there would definitely be people who would be angry and try to touch Yi Chen. Yi Chen was naturally not afraid. In fact, Yi Chen wanted nothing more than for the vassals to be angry. However, Yi Chen was not willing to wait. To be precise, after Yi Chen achieved his goal in the Three Kingdoms beginners area, he did not care who you were. If there was no excuse, he would make an excuse. In short, he would sweep through the world, then conquer the world and ascend. If the future vassals knew that Yi Chen was happy because he had so many excuses to send out troops, they would probably be scared out of their wits. How could a person be so shameless? Of course, the vassals' plan was actually the same as Yi Chen's. There was no difference. Just as Yi Chen was thinking about the benefits of this time, a group of players rushed in from outside Luoyang's city gates. Yi Chen glanced at the players rushing into Luoyang and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The Golden Turban Rebellion had ended. The Shifter Invasion had also ended. The successful people from his previous life had also appeared. Among the first batch of players to appear in Luoyang, Yi Chen saw many familiar faces. To be precise, they were people who had made a name for themselves in the Three Kingdoms beginners area and the Chaos world in his previous life. The leader of the League of Tyrants, who had 2 gold gaming cabins and 5 silver gaming cabins. At the beginning of the game, he had watched Pangu split open the heavens and obtained the Xiantian cultivation technique. Luo Batian, the leader of the Money Gang who had 5 gold gaming cabins, also watched Pangu split open the heavens, and had the same name as a famous tycoon in history, Shen Wansan, the West Gate big official, who was elegant but was actually despicable and shameless, the Ice Beauty Qin Yen, the Liquor Sword Immortal, Li Mubai. As Yi Chen looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar people, the memories of his previous life flashed past like lightning. Just as Yi Chen was immersed in his memories, a middle-aged man at the front of the players suddenly froze and looked at Yi Chen. In the next second, the middle-aged man suddenly exclaimed, "Yi Chen!" As soon as he exclaimed, the players who were rushing forward immediately stopped and looked at Yi Chen in unison. When the players saw that the young man walking towards them was Yi Chen, they were all stunned. What's going on? Aren't you of Beach still outside?" Someone said in a daze. "How the F***ck would I know? I only know that we should be the first batch to arrive in Luoyang." A player wearing a gold set said in confusion. "Sure enough, I guessed it. Yu of Gojoseon has the ability to teleport," a middle-aged man said with a long sigh. As soon as the middle-aged man said this, the players who originally wanted to speak immediately shut their mouths and looked at each other. Their expressions were quickly divided into several factions. Some were envious, some were jealous, some were afraid, some were apprehensive, and so on. Among them, the majority were envious, and relatively few were jealous. All sorts of expressions were playing out among the players. No one spoke, and they all quietly looked at Yi Chen. This was because they were afraid that Yi Chen would misunderstand. To be precise, they were afraid that Yi Chen would misunderstand that they were plotting against Yi Chen. Otherwise, why would they investigate Yi Chen for no reason? They even brought up the fact that Yi Chen had the ability to teleport. You of Beach, I didn't have any other intentions." The middle-aged man felt that the atmosphere was getting quieter and stranger. He suddenly shivered and hurriedly bowed to Yi Chen. Yi Chen glanced at the middle-aged man and then looked at the players, who suddenly had a rich expression on their faces. He smiled and said, "The auction will be held tomorrow. Prepare the enlightenment stones and spiritual herbs for tomorrow's auction. I won't disappoint you." As soon as Yi Chen said this, the players, who had a strange atmosphere because of Yi Chen, heaved a sigh of relief. It couldn't be helped. Yi Chen was too powerful. He was so powerful that they could only look up to him. If Yi Chen was really angry because of the middle-aged man's words, they would be in deep trouble. This wasn't an outcome that they wanted to see. After all, Yi Chen's domineering and ferocious deeds had spread throughout the world. Everyone knew about it. At this moment, an extremely cold voice sounded. "Yi Chen, are you free?" Chapter 555. Yi Chen looked in the direction of the voice and froze. Qin Yen. I thought she didn't talk to men. Yi Chen couldn't be blamed for being confused. After all, in Yi Chen's previous life, Qin Yen was famous for being a block of ice. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Qin Yen never talked to any man, nor did she allow any man to come within 3 meters of her. In Yi Chen's previous life, there were many people who had designs on Qin Yen, from the beginner's area of the 3 kingdoms to the wilderness. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. They were either killed or crippled by Qin Yen. As time passed, Qin Yen gained another nickname besides the title of Ice Beauty, Thorny Ice Rose. Yi Chen believed that Qin Yen must have suffered some kind of trauma. Otherwise, she wouldn't have such a personality. It was precisely because he knew Qin Yan's personality in his previous life that Yi Chen was stunned when Qin Yan spoke to him. Yi Chen wasn't the only one who was stunned. The players standing 3 meters away from Qin Yan were also stunned. They also didn't expect Qin Yan to speak. Although they were stunned, no one spoke. This was because Yi Chen was here, and also because of Qin Yan's valiant deeds. She mercilessly cut down men like chopping melons and vegetables, regardless of whether they were handsome or not. After coming back to his senses, Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan and asked, "Deal?" Yi Chen couldn't be blamed for being so direct. After all, Qin Yan didn't talk to men. Now that she suddenly spoke, it would be strange if she came to Yi Chen for no reason. Of course, Yi Chen had considered helping her, but Yi Chen didn't think Qin Yan would ask for help. Even if Qin Yan wanted to ask for help, she would ask a woman, not a man. Therefore, in Yi Chen's opinion, the only possibility left for Qin Yan to come to Yi Chen was a deal. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, Qin Yan nodded and said, "Yes." Qin Yan's voice was very special. It was very clear and crisp, with a hint of a baby's voice. However, the cold tone of her voice greatly reduced the word pleasant. Yi Chen looked at Qin Yan again, then nodded and said, "Come to the inn." After Yi Chen finished speaking, he headed straight for an inn on the left side of the street. Seeing this, Qin Yan frowned. Obviously, she didn't want to go to the inn with Yi Chen. However, in the next second, Qin Yan gritted her teeth and followed Yi Chen to the tavern. As soon as Qin Yan left, the remaining players were in an uproar. F***ck, what's going on? Didn't they say that this ice beauty doesn't talk to men? A skinny young man said in surprise. What else could it be? Didn't you see who Qin Yan was talking to? Yi cough, that's you of Beach Yi Chen, the most powerful person in the human race. In front of you of Beach, any ice beauty would have to kneel down and sing "Conquer," a fat man said enviously. F***ck, what a pity. Such a good cabbage. A wretched-looking man said regretfully, but before he could finish speaking, he hurriedly shut his mouth. At that moment, a thunderous boom resounded through the sky. Kaboom! At the same time, a bolt of lightning as thick as a human leg descended and struck the wretched-looking man, instantly turning him into ashes. Whoosh! Seeing this, the surrounding players were shocked and hurriedly scattered in all directions, afraid that another bolt of lightning would appear and strike them to death. As for where the lightning came from, the players all looked at Yi Chen, who had just entered the inn and stopped. In the players' eyes, the lightning was released by Yi Chen. That wretched-looking man was too stupid. He compared Qin Yan to a cabbage and said it was a pity. How could he not understand that Yi Chen was a pig? If Yi Chen didn't kill him, who would? While the players were still in shock, at the entrance of the inn, Yi Chen's divine sense locked onto Qin Yan. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, then walked directly to the inn. At that moment, the innkeeper hurriedly rushed from the backyard to the main hall of the inn. From afar, he bowed deeply to Yi Chen and said, "This is Big Fatty Wang. I, Wang the Fatty, pay my respects to King Yu." Yi Chen nodded and said, "Prepare a room." "Yes. You of Beach. This way please." The innkeeper, Big Fatty Wang, hurriedly bowed and respectfully led the way for Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded and went straight upstairs. Qin Yan, who had followed Yi Chen into the inn, stopped in her tracks. After a moment of hesitation, Qin Yan followed him upstairs. Before long, Yi Chen arrived at the heavenly guest room of the inn. Big Fatty Wang eagerly opened the door for Yi Chen, then bowed respectfully and said, "If you of Beach have any orders, please let me know. I will do my best to carry them out. You may leave. Don't let anyone disturb me if there's nothing important," Yi Chen said, nodding. The innkeeper, Big Fatty Wang, hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, I'll take my leave." After that, he bowed and retreated a few steps, then turned around and left the inn. Seeing this, Yi Chen directly entered the room and sat down on a chair. At this moment, Qin Yan arrived at the door. After hesitating for a moment, she directly entered. Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan and asked, "Tell me, what's the deal?" Qin Yan was slightly taken aback. She didn't expect Yi Chen to be so direct. After coming back to her senses, Qin Yan was silent for a moment. Then, she looked at Yi Chen and said, "Be my husband. Help me fall in love. As a reward, I can give you this." After saying this, Qin Yan waved her right hand, and a jade box instantly appeared. In the next second, Qin Yan opened the jade box, and a rich lightning aura suddenly burst out. Seeing this, Yi Chen's eyes widened. He didn't expect this lightning origin. When Yi Chen was at the entrance of the inn, he had seen Qin Yan's face light up with joy. Although it wasn't obvious, Yi Chen clearly saw it with his divine sense. It was also because of this that Yi Chen guessed that Qin Yan wanted to use an item for the deal, and one that could help with lightning magic. However, no matter how much Yi Chen calculated, he did not consider the thunder origin. After coming back to his senses, Yi Chen looked at Qin Yan, who had just opened the jade box and hurriedly closed it again. He asked, "This thing is quite valuable. Aren't you afraid that I'll snatch it away?" Yi Chen needed the lightning origin because Yi Chen cultivated the Shunshao lightning controlling art. If he could refine the lightning origin, his cultivation of the Shunshao lightning controlling art would be like adding wings to a tiger. Thus, Yi Chen placed great importance on the lightning origin. Unfortunately, he had encountered the lightning origin during the gacha lottery and failed to obtain it. Now that the lightning origin had appeared, how could Yi Chen not be tempted? Of course, although he was tempted, Yi Chen wouldn't take it by force. After all, there was no enmity between Qin Yan and Yi Chen, and Qin Yan wasn't an evil person. However, what Yi Chen didn't expect was that Qin Yan, a famous iceberg beauty in his previous life, would dare to take out the lightning origin in front of Yi Chen, even though she knew that Yi Chen was the strongest person in the human race and that he was powerful enough to crush all players. This was really beyond Yi Chen's expectations. Yi Chen didn't think that Qin Yan would take out the lightning origin in front of him because she trusted his character. After all, Qin Yan was able to do well in Yi Chen's previous life, so she couldn't be a stupid person. She also couldn't trust others casually. Otherwise, she would have died hundreds of times in his previous life. Chapter 556. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, Qin Yan's originally cold face stiffened slightly. Then, she looked at Yi Chen and said, "I'm confident that I can leave." After Qin Yan finished speaking, a golden jade slip appeared out of thin air in front of her. Seeing the golden jade slip floating in front of Qin Yan, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. One-time item, invincible jade slip. After use, invincible for 10 seconds. Invincible. I didn't expect her to get such a precious item, however, this might be useful to others, but it's useless to me. My attacks will be ineffective for 10 seconds, but where can I run to in 10 seconds? Just as Yi Chen was thinking this, a jade slip shining with starlight appeared in front of Qin Yan. Yi Chen couldn't help but be stunned when he saw the jade slip that appeared in front of Qin Yan. It was actually a greater teleportation jade slip. After use, one could teleport 50,000 kilometers away. He can really run out of the range of my divine sense. No wonder she dared to take out the spatial essence in front of me. Thinking this, Yi Chen nodded and looked at Qin Yan. If you want to forget, you first have to fall in love. Why did you choose me? Qin Yan's condition for trading the spatial essence with Yi Chen was that Yi Chen become her husband and help her fall in love. If it were anyone else, they might be dumbfounded and then pleasantly surprised. However, Yi Chen wasn't. After his rebirth, Yi Chen knew all too well what Qin Yan's condition meant. Qin Yan was taken aback by Yi Chen's words. She frowned. She frowned and asked, "You know about the supreme emotionless arts?" How could Yi Chen not know about the supreme emotionless arts? After Qin Yan raised the condition, Yi Chen guessed it. However, what Yi Chen didn't expect was that Qin Yan, who clearly hadn't cultivated the supreme emotionless arts in his previous life, actually knew about it and even had her eyes on Yi Chen. To be more precise, she was using Yi Chen to cultivate the supreme emotionless technique. Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan, who was frowning, then nodded and said calmly, "Yes, I know." Yi Chen admitted it without hesitation, because there was no need to lie, and also because Yi Chen wanted to know why Qin Yan had chosen him. After all, in order to successfully cultivate the supreme emotionless technique, the first step was to fall in love. To be precise, it was to find someone of the opposite sex to fall in love with. After that, it was to warm up to the point of dying in love. Finally, it was to pull out the sword and cut off all feelings. The final step was to forget about love. The first step was to fall in love. If Yi Chen agreed, then Yi Chen would have a woman who would not betray him for the time being. Later on, as their relationship grew closer, Yi Chen wouldn't mind toying with Qin Yan as much as he wanted. Not only would Qin Yan not refuse, but she would also take the initiative to cooperate. Moreover, she would be willing to give up everything for Yi Chen, even if Yi Chen wanted to unlock all of Qin Yan's postures. At first glance, not only would Yi Chen not lose out, but he would even gain a huge advantage. However, Yi Chen didn't think so. This was because Yi Chen was very clear on just how monstrous the sage unruffled emotion technique was. If Yi Chen agreed to help Qin Yan fall in love, then it would be impossible for Yi Chen not to fall in love with her. Even if Yi Chen always had a playful attitude, he would slowly fall in love with her as he got to know her better. Even if Yi Chen's heart was firm, it would be useless. Under the influence of the supreme emotionless technique, he would slowly fall in love. In Yi Chen's previous life, he had seen many players who practiced the mantra of lost emotion. The people they chose to fall in love with, regardless of whether they were self-proclaimed wanton and unrestrained male players or lascivious and fickle female players, all of them fell for the mantra of lost emotion. Then, one by one, they fell in love with the person who practiced the supreme emotionless technique. Moreover, they fell in love with the person who practiced the supreme emotionless technique. However, this was only the beginning. When the people who practiced the supreme emotionless technique decided to break off their relationship, those who were chosen to fall in love with them were all tortured without exception. This kind of torture came from the heart and soul. It could drive people crazy and make them feel so heartbroken that they couldn't breathe. And this was the perverse part of the supreme emotionless technique. It was also for this reason that Yi Chen didn't think of agreeing to Qin Yan's request. After all, if he agreed, he would be looking for trouble. Yi Chen didn't want to take the initiative to be tortured, let alone emotionally. After Yi Chen's answer, Qin Yan was silent for a moment. After a moment of silence, she said, "If you want to cultivate the supreme emotionless technique to greater mastery, the stronger the person you choose to fall in love with, the stronger the technique is." "I see." Yi Chen was stunned for a moment before he nodded. Yi Chen really didn't know about this feature of the supreme emotionless technique. After all, Yi Chen only knew about this technique in his previous life and didn't know the specific. Qin Yan glanced at Yi Chen and asked indifferently, "Then, what's your choice?" Hearing this, Yi Chen glanced at the jade box in Qin Yan's right hand, which contained the thunder origin, and asked, It's not easy to cultivate the supreme emotionless technique. It's not that easy to cultivate the Taishang indifference. Since you've fallen in love, how can you break it off so easily? Don't you understand? Qin Yan was stunned for a moment when she heard Yi Chen's question. Then, she fell silent. After a few breaths, Qin Yan looked at Yi Chen and asked, "What's the supreme emotionless technique? At least it's a type of Grand Tao, isn't it?" Yi Chen nodded and said, "You're right, but it's not suitable for you. Your personality is a fatal factor." Hearing this, Qin Yan fell silent again. Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan and didn't say anything, quietly waiting for her answer. The thunder origin was indeed attractive to Yi Chen. Moreover, Yi Chen couldn't force Qin Yan to stay and steal the thunder origin with the combination of the invincible jade slip and the greater teleportation jade slip. However, this didn't hinder the deal between Yi Chen and Qin Yan. To be precise, Yi Chen wouldn't agree to Qin Yan's initial conditions, but Yi Chen would use other conditions to exchange for the thunder origin. After all, Yi Chen didn't want to give up the thunder origin, let alone steal it. Therefore, Yi Chen said so much to Qin Yan and let her think about it herself. In Yi Chen's opinion, it wasn't impossible for Qin Yan to give up on the supreme emotionless technique. After all, in his previous life, Qin Yan hadn't cultivated the supreme emotionless technique at all. In this way, Yi Chen would have a chance to exchange for the thunder origin with other conditions. Time passed bit by bit. Neither Yi Chen nor Qin Yan said a word. It wasn't until the sun set that Qin Yan let out a long breath and looked at Yi Chen. "Can you tell me why you don't accept any subordinates?" Yi Chen couldn't help but be taken aback by her question. When he came to his senses, Yi Chen said, "Desire and desire are endless. Man's desires and hopes are limitless, especially in the world after the meteor fell." Hearing this, Qin Yan glanced at Yi Chen, nodded, and said, "I see. So, what do you want to use to make the deal?" Chapter 557. Hearing this, Yi Chen smiled and waved his right hand. A Xiantian cultivation method instantly appeared in Yi Chen's hand. Qin Yan was stunned when she saw the Xiantian cultivation method in Yi Chen's hand. She had never thought that Yi Chen would take out a cultivation method to trade for the thunder essence. In her opinion, a cultivation method that could trade for the thunder essence in her hand would definitely be of a high grade. However, Qin Yan had calculated that in the current game world, it was impossible for a Xiantian cultivation method to appear. Even the worst low-grade Xiantian cultivation method wouldn't appear. But now, Yi Chen had taken out a cultivation method to trade for the thunder essence, which surprised Qin Yan. Qin Yan didn't think that Yi Chen would be so despicable and shameless as to use a saint-grade cultivation method, or even a low-grade one, to trade for the thunder essence. After all, Yi Chen had made it clear that he wanted to trade with her, and Yi Chen had also made it clear that she wanted to cultivate the sage unruffled emotion art. This was enough to prove that Yi Chen knew the grade of the sage unruffled emotion art. Therefore, the cultivation method Yi Chen took out couldn't be any lower than the saint grade. And this was the fundamental reason why Qin Yan was stunned. Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan, who was still in a daze, and then tossed it to her. After Qin Yan caught it, he said, when she caught it, he said, "Although the sage unruffled emotion arts is of a higher grade than this cultivation method, it's too risky and doesn't suit you. Why don't you cultivate this one? After you ascend, you'll have plenty of opportunities to obtain a better cultivation method that suits you." Yi Chen was telling the truth. Qin Yan's personality was flawed, or rather, her mental state was flawed. Otherwise, she wouldn't have hated men and didn't like men getting close to her. With such a serious flaw, it would be impossible for her to cultivate the sage unruffled emotion arts and fall in love. When the time came, she'd be lucky if she didn't suffer chi deviation. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have said this. If Qin Yan insisted on practicing the art of forgetting emotion, she would never be able to achieve what she had achieved in her previous life. She might even end up as a plaything for the person she chose. Yi Chen knew this was the result, but he didn't want to bet on it. More importantly, Yi Chen didn't want to take advantage of Qin Yan. This was because Yi Chen was not a heartless person. As long as it was a woman that Yi Chen had set his eyes on, Yi Chen would invest his feelings in her. If Yi Chen wanted women, he could just wave his hand and a bunch of them would appear. Whether it was in the game world or in the real world, it was the same. On this point, Yi Chen was very sure. But Yi Chen wouldn't do that. Otherwise, Yi Chen would have taken in a lot of money from the start. After hearing Yi Chen's question, Qin Yan didn't answer Yi Chen immediately. Instead, she looked at the Xiantian cultivation method in her hand. After confirming that the cultivation method in her hand was a Xiantian cultivation method, Qin Yan looked up at Yi Chen and shook her head. "It's not enough." "It's enough." Hearing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Don't forget that you've offended me." It was true that a Xiantian cultivation method couldn't be exchanged for a thunder essence, but this was a deal, so there had to be a price. For Yi Chen, he naturally wanted to get the thunder essence at the lowest price. Qin Yan, on the other hand, naturally wanted to sell it at a higher price. As for Yi Chen's offense, it was naturally the matter of Qin Yan having designs on Yi Chen. To be precise, Qin Yan wanted to use Yi Chen to fall in love with him and then cut off all feelings for him. At first glance, Yi Chen wouldn't suffer a loss. Instead, he would gain a big advantage. But the fact was that Yi Chen would suffer a love tribulation because of this, and then his state of mind would become unstable. If such a result really happened, Yi Chen would be doomed. If he could overcome the love tribulation, then everything would be fine. If he couldn't, then he would be completely finished. No matter what the result was, it couldn't be denied that Qin Yan had schemed against Yi Chen. Yi Chen didn't want to snatch the thunder essence, but he wouldn't let himself suffer a loss like this. Therefore, in the deal, he definitely had to add the fact that Yi Chen had been schemed against. As for using his power to oppress others, Yi Chen didn't care, nor did he care what others said. Business was business. Yi Chen knew very well how to negotiate. In fact, if Qin Yan had said from the beginning that she wanted to exchange the thunder essence for something, Yi Chen wouldn't have done this. To be precise, Yi Chen would have taken out something of corresponding value, such as a Xiantian spiritual treasure or a purple gold red gourd. This thing was very powerful, but it had many restrictions. At most, he would have told his subordinates not to respond when someone called his name, and then report it to Yi Chen immediately. Others couldn't do anything about the purple gold red gourd, but Yi Chen had many ways. Therefore, Yi Chen wouldn't feel bad about exchanging the purple gold red gourd for the thunder essence. Unfortunately, Qin Yan didn't say that she wanted to exchange the thunder essence for something. Instead, she schemed against Yi Chen. Even if her chances of success were very low, she had schemed against him. There was no doubt about this. Qin Yan, who was standing at the door of the heaven classroom, fell silent upon hearing this. She had no choice but to remain silent, because Yi Chen was telling the truth. Even Qin Yan herself knew this. This was because her sage emotionless mantra had a detailed description of the state of mind. Therefore, she was well aware of the consequences of forcibly cultivating, and also knew what would happen after Yi Chen agreed to be her lover. After a few breaths, Qin Yan looked at Yi Chen and said seriously, "Add one more condition to this cultivation method." When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and look at Qin Yan. What condition? Yi Chen didn't care about Qin Yan's condition. After all, the value of the thunder essence was obvious. Hearing Yi Chen's question, Qin Yan gritted her teeth and said, "I want a house. I want a house in Samsara City in the real world." Impossible. Hearing this, Yi Chen immediately frowned and rejected without the slightest hesitation. Qin Yan wanted to live in Samsara City for her own safety. After all, the protective shield of the safe city was about to collapse. Yi Chen was well aware of this, but Yi Chen couldn't agree. After all, Samsara City in the real world was Yi Chen's headquarters. How could he let an outsider come in so casually? Qin Yen frowned slightly and said, I can help you defend Samsara City. You know, I also watched Pangu split the sky. In the future, I will definitely be stronger than your subordinate. Hearing this, Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and said, You think too much. You're thinking too much. My subordinates might not have a worse future than you. Besides, you don't have loyalty to speak of. Originally, Yi Chen wanted to let Qin Yen mention other conditions. As long as Yi Chen could accept them, he would definitely agree. However, Yi Chen didn't expect that Qin Yen didn't want to give up at all. Hearing this, Qin Yan's expression changed slightly, and she said, I can swear that I will never do anything to betray you. Hearing this, Yi Chen narrowed his eyes again and asked in a deep voice, What are you talking about? You're trying to say that we're all players and cultivators, so we can't simply swear an oath. Otherwise, all the punishments will come true if we break the oath, right? Yi Chen's tone was clearly cold at this moment. Isn't that right? Are you worried that I will harm you after swearing the oath? Qin Yen frowned and said. Hearing this, Yi Chen sneered and then shouted angrily, Enough! That's enough. Don't think that just because I can't do anything to you now, you can do whatever you want. You can try to run away and see if I can catch you. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, violent killing intent rose in an instant. The temperature of the entire inn dropped to freezing point. Players' oaths were indeed useful, but that was only after the mortal evolution state. For it to come true 100%, one had to be at the nirvana state. Yi Chen didn't know how Qin Yen knew about oaths, but this didn't stop Yi Chen from killing her. Before, when Qin Yen wanted to use Yi Chen to fall in love with her and cultivate the supreme emotion for getting art, Yi Chen didn't mind. At that time, although Yi Chen didn't have a good impression of Qin Yen, it wasn't that bad. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that Qin Yen had to give up everything, and the success rate of breaking love was extremely low. In the end, the one who would lose out would most likely be Qin Yen, not Yi Chen. But now, Qin Yen wanted to use oaths as an excuse. This didn't make Yi Chen feel at ease. One must know that if one wasn't at the mortal evolution state, it didn't matter how one swore, and Qin Yen wasn't at the mortal evolution state yet. But in the end, Qin Yen still wanted to use oaths as an excuse. Wasn't this obvious? She still wanted to trick Yi Chen. How could Yi Chen still speak in a nice tone? When Qin Yen, who was standing at the door, sensed Yi Chen's violent killing intent, her expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly shouted, Don't you want this lightning treasure? Qin Yen wasn't afraid of Yi Chen because she had the invincible Jade Slip and the Great Transmission Jade Slip. Yi Chen couldn't kill her at all, and she could escape unscathed. However, she was afraid that Yi Chen would hunt her down. Others didn't know that Yi Chen had spirit sense, but Qin Yen knew very well. This was because she had once entered a special secret realm and learned a lot about cultivation. Primordial spirit and spirit sense were part of this information. Of course, this wasn't enough to make Qin Yen afraid. Don't forget that Yi Chen could teleport, and many players had already deduced this. Qin Yen was one of them. Of course, this wasn't the key. The key was the combination of the two. To be precise, it was the combination of spirit sense and teleportation. Qin Yen didn't know how fast this combination was, but this didn't affect her judgment. If Yi Chen was ruthless, he would definitely hunt her down. No matter how good she was at escaping, she would only be able to escape for a while. In the end, she would still be found by Yi Chen, and then be killed by Yi Chen on the spot. Qin Yen knew this very well. After all, Yi Chen's ferocity was already a well-known fact. It was also because she knew the result of being hunted down by Yi Chen that her expression changed drastically when Yi Chen released his killing intent. This wasn't what she had expected. In Qin Yan's opinion, she should be the only one who knew about cultivation. Even if others knew, at most, they would only know a little about it. After all, she was the only one who entered that special secret realm. After she came out, the secret realm would automatically be destroyed. However, the cruel reality clearly told her one thing. She wasn't the only one who knew the specific effect of the oath. Yi Chen also knew. Although Yi Chen didn't say it explicitly, Yi Chen's attitude said it all. Sitting in his chair, Yi Chen felt even more disgusted after hearing Qin Yan's harsh words. At this moment, Yi Chen's originally bad impression of Qin Yan turned into disgust. Qin Yan was insidious and cunning. As long as she didn't treat Yi Chen like this, Yi Chen couldn't be bothered with her. However, Qin Yan thought she was smart. Not only did she trick Yi Chen twice, but she also threatened Yi Chen with the origin of lightning. How could Yi Chen not be angry? Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan coldly and then shouted, "Cut the crap. I'm only asking you one question. Do you want to make a deal or not?" Chapter 558. Hearing Yi Chen's words, Qin Yan couldn't help but shudder. She could hear Yi Chen's impatience and also feel Yi Chen's cold and merciless killing intent. Of all her calculations, she had never expected that Yi Chen, who clearly wanted the lightning-attributed treasure in her hands, would turn hostile so decisively, to the point that he no longer had any intention of continuing the discussion. This was seriously beyond Qin Yan's expectations. In Qin Yan's opinion, as long as she threatened Yi Chen would definitely compromise. Even if he didn't compromise, he would hesitate. After all, Yi Chen had clearly expressed his desire for the source of thunder when she took out the thunder attribute treasure. Therefore, Qin Yan didn't think that Yi Chen would make a decision without thinking. However, the cruel reality told Qin Yan one thing. Yi Chen was completely different from other people. He didn't even think about what would happen if he couldn't get the source of thunder. Qin Yan tried to calm her violently beating heart, then looked at Yi Chen, whose expression was extremely cold, and said, "Deal. Deal." Qin Yan was unwilling to give up, because her treasure was 100% more valuable than the connate cultivation method Yi Chen gave her. Although Qin Yan didn't know the specific value of the treasure in her hand, it didn't affect her judgment. Otherwise, how could Yi Chen have expressed his desire to make a deal right from the start? Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Yi Chen didn't frown or feel disgusted after she said, "One more condition." Instead, he even asked her what the condition was. All this was enough to prove the preciousness of the treasure in her hand. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have acted like that. Unfortunately, Yi Chen didn't agree to let her live in the Samsara city in the real world. Later, Yi Chen got angry because of her threat. Qin Yan knew that there was no medicine for regret in this world. However, she was unwilling to give up, because she didn't want to make a deal at a loss. However, Qin Yan didn't dare to refuse Yi Chen. She had the invincible jade slip and the great teleportation jade slip. As long as Yi Chen attacked her, the invincible jade slip and the great teleportation jade slip would be activated automatically. At that time, she would be able to teleport 100,000 kilometers away without worrying about being killed by Yi Chen's soul-devouring black spear. However, Qin Yan knew that it would only be temporary. Yi Chen could teleport and use his spiritual sense. It would be too easy for him to hunt her down. Qin Yan even had a feeling that if she refused and teleport away, she wouldn't be able to last long before Yi Chen caught up to her. Then, she would be mercilessly killed by Yi Chen. But she didn't want to give space, she didn't want to refuse didn't est. When Yi Chen heard Qin Yan's unwilling answer, he sneered and said, "That's right. Give it to me." Yi Chen wanted to make a good deal. He was even prepared to take out the innate spiritual treasure, the purple gold-red gourd. However, Qin Yan kept trying to trick him and made demands that exceeded his bottom line. How could Yi Chen be nice to her? When Qin Yan heard this, a conflicted expression appeared on her face. However, she quickly handed the jade box over to Yi Chen. Seeing this, Yi Chen reached out and grabbed it. The moment the jade box was in Yi Chen's hand, the system beeped. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining Thunder Origin X1. The moment the system notification ended, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, with a thought, in the next second, the jade box containing the Thunder Origin was instantly put into the storage space. Qin Yan, who was standing at the door, saw Yi Chen take away the lightning source, and her expression turned even uglier. Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan, whose face had suddenly turned incomparably ugly, and said indifferently, "You're the one who doesn't know how to grasp things. I originally thought that you were a straightforward person, but unfortunately you're not." Hearing this, Qin Yan's already unsightly expression froze. After a few breaths, Qin Yan's face returned to normal. She looked at Yi Chen and said coldly, "Goodbye. I'll take my leave." Yi Chen glanced at Qin Yan and said, "I won't see you out." Hearing this, Qin Yan snorted and turned around to leave. Yi Chen looked at Qin Yan's departing figure and curled his lips in disdain. Yi Chen knew very well what Qin Yan was feeling at the moment. Yi Chen also knew what Qin Yan wanted to do. But to Yi Chen, this was not a problem at all. Yi Chen would become stronger and stronger, and so would Yi Chen's subordinates. More importantly, Yi Chen would soon own an empire. No matter how famous or powerful Yi Chen had been in his previous life, she couldn't compete with Yi Chen. As far as Yi Chen was concerned, it would be fine if Qin Yan didn't come to Yi Chen for revenge. However, if she dared to come, Yi Chen would directly kill her. Qin Yan's luck was pretty good. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known about cultivation, let alone obtained the invincible Jade Slip, the greater teleportation Jade Slip, and the Thunder Origin. Unfortunately, her nature was too bad. Otherwise, Qin Yan would definitely be stronger in this life than she had been in his previous life, and she would have gone further. With this thought, Yi Chen willed 300 Dao Comprehension Stones to appear in front of Yi Chen. Glancing at the 300 Dao Comprehension Stones, Yi Chen chose to use them without any hesitation. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for using Dao Comprehension Stones. Dao Comprehension Mode has been activated. Duration, 300 minutes. As soon as the system's notification ended, a jade box appeared in Yi Chen's hand. Yi Chen glanced at the jade box and opened it without hesitation, taking out the Thunder Origin. Qin Yan knew a lot of information, but unfortunately, she only knew a little bit of it. However, this is good for me. Otherwise, why would she come to me with the Thunder Origin? Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. With a wave of his right hand, the door to the sky room closed. In the next second, Yi Chen sat down cross-legged and began to refine the Thunder Origin. The Thunder Origin was very important to Yi Chen, because Yi Chen cultivated the Shunshao lightning controlling technique. As long as he refined the Thunder Origin, Yi Chen's Shunshao lightning controlling technique would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Of course, this was only one of the benefits of refining the Thunder Origin. The most important thing was the Thunder Origin itself. As long as he refined the Thunder Origin, it meant that Yi Chen had a ticket to control the Great Tao of Thunder. What was the Great Tao of Thunder? It was one of the 3,000 Great Taos, the correct path to becoming a sage. Of course, this would take time. After all, Origin was Origin, and Tao validation was Tao validation. The two could not be compared. Yi Chen's goal was to validate his Tao through strength, and this had never changed. One had to know that Yi Chen's 9 Revolutions mystic art was the path of validating his Tao through strength. As for the reason, it was very simple. Once he succeeded in validating his Tao through strength, he would be the most powerful and could directly challenge the heavenly Tao. Otherwise, after Yi Chen's rebirth, he would not have chosen to validate his Tao through strength. Although this path was very difficult, Yi Chen would not give up. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that at this moment, Yi Chen did not mind mastering one more ability to validate his Tao. Chapter 559. Time passed bit by bit. Yi Chun, who was in the enlightenment mode, soon forgot everything and then wholeheartedly refined the thunder origin. Not long after, an inexplicable fluctuation suddenly appeared from Yi Chen's body, wave after wave. At the same time, the mysterious sound of the great Tao rang out. This was a special fluctuation produced by refining the thunder origin in the enlightenment mode. No matter how hard Yi Chen tried to control it, he could not eliminate it. An hour later, the thunder origin floating in front of Yi Chen had shrunk by half. Obviously, this was because Yi Chen had refined half of the thunder origin. Otherwise, such a situation would not have happened. If there were mighty figures in the untainted world who saw this result, they would definitely be shocked. This was because no one could refine the power of the origin in the enlightenment mode like Yi Chen, who could refine half of the thunder origin in an hour. Although the thunder origin was not as good as the time origin or the space origin, the thunder origin was still a top power among all the great Daos of the origin. How could it be so easy to refine? However, Yi Chen was just like a monster. In just 1 hour, he had refined half of the lightning origin source. How could this not shock and astonish everyone? In fact, at this moment, except for the sages, no one could find out why Yi Chen could refine the thunder origin so quickly. To be precise, Yi Chen's ability to refine the thunder origin so quickly had a lot to do with Yi Chen's cultivation of the divine night thunder controlling technique. However, the bigger reason was that Yi Chen had half of the luck of the human clan and had also used a large number of enlightenment stones extravagantly. If Yi Chen did not have half of the luck of the human clan, it would be impossible for Yi Chen to refine half of the thunder origin in an hour. Of course, the enlightenment mode was also very important. If Yi Chen did not use the enlightenment stones and comprehended and refined the thunder origin on his own, it would definitely not be so smooth. Of course, it was more likely that it would end quickly and the thunder origin would be wasted. After all, the power of the origin could only be refined once. Even if one obtained more origin power later on, they could forget about continuing. Take Yi Chen for example. If Yi Chen could not refine all of the thunder origin in one go, then there would only be one result. He would be destined to have no fate with the thunder origin. Then, there would be no then. Even if he obtained the thunder origin again, he would not be able to control it. Such examples had happened a few times in Yi Chen's previous life. Although there were not many, Yi Chen remembered them very clearly. For example, a lucky human player had accidentally obtained an ice origin. However, this guy didn't make any preparations at all and directly refined it. In the end, he only refined a little bit of it. By the sages by the end of it by the time by the thunder origin. By the sages by the end, he was by the end by the end. By the SBY by the end. By the sages by God. Her cries were filled with grief, misery, and despair. As for the reason, it was because the origin power could only be refined once. If it was used on that player, it would be the ice origin power. He could only refine it once. He could forget about continuing. In fact, this was the limit of the great Tao. Because refining the power of the origin power was a shortcut. If everyone could take a shortcut, then what was the use of the great Tao and the heavenly Tao? In fact, it was not just the players. Even powerful existences like Hongjun and the three pure ones also had this limitation. To Yi Chen, it would be a fool's action not to refine the thunder origin power in one go. It would be too king wasteful. Therefore, Yi Chen did not hesitate to use the enlightenment stones. Time passed bit by bit. The thunder origin power was constantly refined by Yi Chen under the blessing of the enlightenment mode. Gradually, some small lightning bolts appeared in the space around Yi Chen. Then, more and more lightning bolts appeared and became denser. At the same time, the crackling sound of lightning followed closely behind. Soon, the small lightning bolts began to spread and spread. Then, they rushed out of the room Yi Chen was in. Not long after, a few shrill screams were heard. In the next second, the doors of the guest rooms near Yi Chen's room suddenly opened. 3 men with black faces and shaggy hair rushed out with horror in their eyes. Then, they rushed toward the stairs from the 2nd floor to the 1st floor of the inn. In a few seconds, there were several more screams. Then, the doors of the guest rooms opened. Several men who had been struck by lightning miserably came out and ran away. In just a few breaths, the entire inn was completely occupied by the screams. Then, the owner of the inn, the staff, and the guests who stayed in the inn were all running out miserably. Outside the inn, the players who had gathered because of Yi Chen's appearance were all dumbfounded as they looked at the guests who kept rushing out of the inn. Then, they all shivered. They were all players. How could they not know why the people who ran out of the inn were in such a situation? Look at the explosive hairstyles, the black faces, and the trembling bodies. They were F*King struck by lightning, while the players were still in shock. The small lightning bolts rushed out of the inn. After a series of crackling sounds, there was a series of crackling sounds. Cries of agony could be heard instantly. Ouch, F*Ck. The faces of the gamers outside the inn turned green. Most of them were players who liked to gossip. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stayed here and waited for Qin Yan to come out. As for the other players, they were either hesitating about whether to stay in the inn where Yi Chen was, or had other ideas. Of course, none of this was important. What was important was that these players wanted to curse. F*Ck, I was just standing here, watching the show, and finding out some information. Was there a need to strike me with lightning? They were angry, regretful, and wanted to curse, but no one dared. No one dared to stay here. F*Ck, the sudden appearance of the small lightning bolts was too F*King ferocious. How many lightning bolts had there been? Not only did they not decrease, but they were also increasing in number. If they stayed any longer, they would die. Without thinking, the players all ran away as fast as they could. Of course, although they ran wildly, as long as they were within the range of the small lightning bolts, there was no exception. The lightning bolts came wave after wave. Not only were they faster, but they were also more and more powerful. It wasn't until they were 100 meters away from the inn that the incomparably ferocious lightning massage finally ended. F*Ck. Waves and waves of angry shouts followed closely behind. F*Ck. I didn't provoke Yi Chen. Why was I struck by lightning? Chapter 560. F*Ck. What's going on? Is Yi Chen trying to kill us all? Definitely. F*Ck. If I hadn't run fast enough, I would have been struck to death by the lightning. I don't think he wants to strike us to death. Don't forget, there was an idiot who was struck to death by lightning because he was talking about Yi Chen. Could it be that Yi Chen doesn't want us to be outside the inn? F*Ck. Even if he doesn't want us to be outside the inn, he can still talk about it. Why did he suddenly release lightning? It's too F*King unreasonable. That's impossible. Isn't Yi Chen going to auction cultivation techniques tomorrow? It doesn't make sense to chase us away. Could it be that Yi Chen is cultivating? Then he inadvertently released lightning? A middle-aged man suddenly thought of something and shouted. As soon as he said that, the angry players instantly stopped their discussion. They looked at each other and then revealed a pained expression. The players felt that the reason given by this player was very close to the truth. After all, Yi Chen had already said on the World Channel that there would be an auction tomorrow. It was impossible for him to chase the players away. If all the players were chased away, who would participate in the auction? The players knew this simple logic. Furthermore, this was Luoyang. The Golden Turban Rebellion and the Demon Invasion had ended. There was nothing to gain. Therefore, Yi Chen couldn't chase the players away for no reason. Since it wasn't for no reason, the reason was very obvious. Yi Chen was cultivating, which resulted in the release of lightning. The players were envious and jealous when they thought of how Yi Chen could create such a huge commotion while cultivating. There was no other way. The gap was too big. The players wanted to catch up to Yi Chen, but they couldn't. All they could do was be envious and jealous. As for hatred, there was some, but it wasn't as much as at the beginning of the game. This was because many players had already resigned themselves to their fate. Just as the players were lamenting, envious, and jealous of Yi Chen, a female player in the innermost part of the crowd, who was close to the area enveloped by lightning, glared fiercely at the second floor of the inn that was enveloped by tiny lightning bolts. Damn it! That lightning origin source can make people gain enlightenment. The woman's voice was very soft, so soft that only she could hear it. However, this did not stop her from being angry. Yes, she was furious because she was Qin Yan. After leaving Yi Chen's heaven classroom, she had gone straight to the innkeeper and checked in. She had never thought that the thunder origin could allow one to gain enlightenment. Unfortunately, as soon as she entered the state of enlightenment, she was awakened by a tiny bolt of lightning. Although she was unwilling, she didn't dare to continue staying in the inn. Because those tiny lightning bolts were continuous and uninterrupted. If she didn't leave, she would definitely be electrocuted. Of course, that wasn't important. What was important was that Qin Yan not only regretted her actions, but also hated Yi Chen even more. The reason was simple. The lightning origin source could allow one to have an epiphany. However, this epiphany opportunity had become Yi Chen's. The most outrageous thing was that she, who could have had an epiphany with Yi Chen, had been forcibly deprived of this opportunity by Yi Chen. How could she not be angry? It had to be known that Qin Yan had obtained some information about cultivation in a secret realm, so she naturally knew what an epiphany represented. It was precisely because she knew that Qin Yan was so angry. Yi Chen, who was in the state of enlightenment, naturally didn't know what Qin Yan was thinking. Of course, even if Yi Chen knew, he would only feel disdain. After all, the reason Qin Yan had been able to enter the state of enlightenment was not because of the lightning origin, but because Yi Chen had used the enlightenment stone. Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that the lightning bolts that had enveloped 100 meters of the inn were actually the result of Yi Chen's deliberate actions. The best way to refine origin source, apart from using the enlightenment stone, was to swallow it. The spatial origin that Yi Chen had refined before had been swallowed. However, Yi Chen hadn't swallowed the lightning origin source that was currently being refined by Yi Chen. As for the reason, it was very simple. When refining the lightning origin source in the state of enlightenment, it would produce special fluctuations, and anyone within the range of the fluctuations would be able to enter an epiphany state. Yi Chen didn't want others to take advantage of him. It was also for this reason that Yi Chen didn't choose to swallow the lightning origin source. Instead, he directly began to refine it. Because only in this way would a large-scale phenomenon appear when refining the lightning origin source, or in other words, a large-scale lightning bolt. Time passed little by little, and the tiny lightning bolts that had enveloped 100 meters of the inn began to converge. Before long, they had turned into numerous lightning snakes. At this moment, the crackling sound of electricity also became loud and clear. After a few breaths of time, the lightning snakes converged and turned into lightning pythons, which then turned into lightning dragons. The instant the lightning dragons appeared, a berserk, tyrannical, and all-destroying aura instantly erupted. When the players who had run out of the lightning range sensed the berserk aura from the lightning dragons, they all abruptly shuddered and turned to run. There was nothing they could do about it. There were too many lightning dragons, and they were too densely packed. More importantly, each lightning dragon was emitting a powerful, tyrannical, and destructive aura. The players didn't want to be struck to death, so it would be strange if they didn't run. Just as the players were madly running away, Qin Yan, whose face had been struck by lightning and whose hair had exploded, directly left Luoyang City. In the sky room of the inn, Yi Chen, who was refining the lightning-attributed origin source, was still persisting. Time passed little by little, An hour later, a world announcement suddenly rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Qin Yan for becoming the second Emperor General. The world announcement rang out 3 times in a row, immediately waking up Yi Chen, who was refining the lightning origin source. Damn, it's a good thing I used the Enlightenment Stone and entered the Enlightenment mode. Otherwise, wouldn't this bullshit system announcement have ruined my opportunity? But how did Qin Yan suddenly become an Emperor General? With this thought in mind, Yi Chen instantly released his divine sense. In the next second, outside Luoyang City, Qin Yan, who was at the bandit spawn point, entered the range of Yi Chen's divine sense. Seeing Qin Yan, whose face was full of resentment as she gritted her teeth and killed bandits, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. This woman really knows how to seize the opportunity. At this time, there really aren't any players farming bandits. No, she doesn't have much experience killing bandits anymore. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, Qin Yan, who was standing next to the corpse of the bandit leader, sneered, then looked at Luoyang and roared hatefully. Yi Chen, you stole my opportunity. Just you wait, I'll make you wish you were dead. I swear. Yi Chen, who hadn't retracted his divine sense, naturally saw Qin Yan's expression and heard her words at the same time. You're overestimating yourself. Yi Chen coldly glanced in the direction outside Luoyang City. With a thought, the dark and thick God-slayer instantly appeared. In the next second, the God-slayer shook and directly plunged into a distorted space, then disappeared. Chapter 561. Outside Luoyang City, in the large hall of the stronghold. Just as Qin Yan was about to bend down to pick up the equipment on the ground, the space above the stronghold suddenly distorted. A spear tip exuding a destructive aura suddenly emerged from the distorted space. Qin Yan, who had just bent down halfway, suddenly felt her scalp go numb. At the same time, she abruptly stopped bending down. Danger, extreme danger. This feeling rose in Qin Yan's heart for no reason. Just then, the thick, black god-slaying spear emerged from the distorted space and mercilessly stabbed at Qin Yan. A strong destructive aura erupted in an instant. Yi Chen. It must be Yi Chen. Feeling the extremely strong destructive aura, a name instantly appeared in Qin Yan's mind. Qin Yan couldn't help but think so. There was only one person who could threaten her with death, and that was Yi Chen. Qin Yan had just thought of this when a jade slip suddenly appeared in front of her and exploded. At the same time, a golden light shield enveloped Qin Yan. At this moment, the God-slayer arrived. With a buzzing sound, the incomparably ferocious god-killing spear was actually blocked outside the golden light screen. Seeing the golden light shield appear, Qin Yan's face suddenly twisted. One of her trump cards, the invincible jade slip, had been activated. Obviously, she was in danger, a danger that could kill her. Otherwise, the invincible jade slip wouldn't have been activated automatically. Her life was saved, but her trump card was gone. Originally, she had planned to use the invincible jade slip to seek revenge on Yi Chen when she was strong enough. But now, the invincible jade slip had been activated, and her plan was completely shattered. Resentment, fear, and unwillingness. 3 negative emotions appeared in Qin Yan's mind wave after wave, and then continued to intertwine with each other until Qin Yan almost went crazy. In Qin Yan's opinion, she wouldn't stay weak forever. Yi Chen could teleport and release lightning, so she could do it in the future. As long as she could catch up to Yi Chen's level, even if she was a little weaker than Yi Chen, she would still have a chance to kill Yi Chen without suffering any harm. Because she had the invincible jade slip, once she used it, she would become invincible and no one would be able to hurt her. However, at this moment, her dreams and plans had all turned into bubbles. How could she be willing to accept this? How could she not feel hatred? Qin Yan gritted her teeth and looked up. That was where the danger had come from. When Qin Yan saw the god-slaying spear, which was blocked by the invincible golden light shield, her pupils shrank. The god-slayer, dark and thick, gave off a violent aura that could destroy heaven and earth. That aura was terrifying, even Qin Yan was no exception. Qin Yan didn't know the name of the god-killing spear, but she knew that it had the ability to devour souls. It was precisely because she knew that the god-slaying spear had the ability to devour souls that Qin Yan had been frightened when she saw it. Because of the godslayer's brutal past, and because the godslayer was still attacking the golden light shield. Yi Chen! Qin Yan roared at the sky, her eyes bloodshot and her face filled with madness. She had originally planned to leave behind a greater teleportation jade slip, so that she would still have a chance to take revenge on Yi Chen. After all, once she used the greater teleportation jade slip, she would be teleported hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. She had launched a sneak attack on Yi Chen without any fear. If she succeeded, she would take her revenge. If she failed, she would just use the greater teleportation jade strip to escape. At most, she would find another opportunity to take revenge on Yi Chen. However, Qin Yan hadn't expected that the Godslayer would not only appear out of thin air, but also attack her endlessly. If she didn't teleport away now, the invincible golden light shield would automatically dissipate after 10 seconds. Then, she would have no other choice but to die. It was for this reason that Qin Yan was so angry. She hated him. She hated Yi Chen to the core. That was because what Yi Chen was doing was simply destroying all of her trump cards. Furthermore, he was not giving her a way out. Because once she used the greater teleportation jade slip, she would be able to escape, but she would have to flee abroad. Qin Yan didn't know what was going on abroad, but this didn't stop her from being terrified. Since the game world was divided into different gaming areas, it was naturally impossible for all gaming areas to coexist peacefully. If she rashly ran to a gaming area abroad, she would most likely be hunted down by the entire country. The reality was just as Qin Yan thought. If she used the greater teleportation jade slip, she would definitely be teleported abroad and labeled as an intruder. Whoever killed her would benefit. Of course, at this moment, there weren't many people who were stronger than Qin Yan in foreign countries. However, Qin Yan wasn't that strong, so she would eventually be hunted down. She wouldn't be able to cultivate or replenish herself, and she wouldn't even dare to go online. This was also one of the reasons why Yi Chen didn't directly attack Qin Yan when he saw her take out the Thunder Origin. After all, if Qin Yan used the greater teleportation jade slip, she would be teleported abroad. Now that the border barrier had not been opened, even if Yi Chen had spatial abilities, he couldn't cross it. If that was the case, Qin Yan's lightning essence might no longer be in her hands. Yi Chen didn't want to see this result. Buzz, buzz, because of the god-slaying spear's attack, the golden invincible light shield was constantly emitting buzzing sounds. Qin Yan glared at the Godslayer and then looked in the direction of Luoyang. In the next second, Qin Yan took out the greater teleportation jade slip and shouted, "Yi Chen, I won't let you go. Just you wait." After shouting, Qin Yan directly used the greater teleportation jade slip. In the next second, tens of thousands of starlight suddenly wrapped around Qin Yan and then disappeared in a flash. Luoyang in Heaven Room. Yi Chen, who had been watching Qin Yan with his divine sense, curled his lips in disdain. She better not appear, otherwise, thinking of this, Yi Chen smiled coldly. Then, he began to refine the lightning source energy again. For Yi Chen, the most important thing at this moment was to refine the Thunder Origin. Other than that, everything else had to wait. As for attacking Qin Yan, Yi Chen didn't think he could kill her directly. After all, Qin Yan had the invincible jade slip and the greater teleportation jade slip. Yi Chen was only in the Nirvana realm. Although he was strong, he was only strong in the mortal world. In the face of such a special item, Yi Chen couldn't do anything for the time being. However, this wasn't important. What was important was that Yi Chen wouldn't let Qin Yan keep her trump cards and continue to develop. After all, Qin Yan was now Yi Chen's enemy, and Yi Chen wouldn't show mercy to his enemies. Time passed little by little. The power of thunder and lightning around Yi Chen continued to spread. After an hour, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly opened. Success. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for completely refining the Thunder Origin and becoming the first Thunder Origin controller. Special reward title: Thunder Sovereign. Chapter 562. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. F***CK. It was actually the Thunder Element Supremacy. In other words, Hong Jun in the elemental world had yet to refine the Thunder Origin. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. He then looked at the attributes of the Thunder Element Supremacy title. Thunder Element Supremacy controls thousands of thunderbolts. His ability will become stronger as his realm increases. The introduction was very simple and crude, but the 4 words, controls thousands of thunderbolts, directly described the characteristics of the Thunder Element Supremacy. To be precise, as long as it was thunderbolts, no matter what attribute they would be controlled by Yi Chen. For example, the 9 heavens divine thunder, 9 nether een thunder, sunflower water thunder, thick earth thunder, and so on. Even the strongest heavenly punishment could be controlled by Yi Chen as long as it belonged to the thunder element. As for the reason, it was very simple. Yi Chen had refined the Thunder Origin and obtained the title of Thunder Element Supremacy. In the Thunder Element, Yi Chen was the only king. Of course, it was undeniable that Yi Chen's realm was still very low. Even if Yi Chen had the title of Thunder Element Supremacy, he could not release many thunder spells. However, Thunder Element Supremacy represented the Thunder Element Great Tao. As long as Yi Chen reached a certain realm, then Yi Chen could directly use all the thunder spells that could be used in that realm without any hindrance. This was a very perverted and tyrannical thing to say. However, that was the truth. After all, Yi Chen was the first to refine the Thunder Origin and open the door to the top of the Thunder Element Great Tao. Yi Chen's realm was very low, but as long as Yi Chen's realm increased, then Yi Chen would be the king, the emperor of the Thunder Element. In fact, even Yi Chen himself did not expect to obtain the title of Thunder Element Supremacy directly after refining the Thunder Origin. Originally, Yi Chen thought that Hong Jun had refined the Thunder Origin and become the Thunder Element Supremacy. But now, Yi Chen had become the Lightning Sovereign. The result was obvious. Hong Jun had yet to refine the Lightning Origin. To Yi Chen, this was undoubtedly a great piece of news. This was because among the 3,000 great Daos, only one person could reach the peak, and this person was none other than a sovereign. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have received a special storyline mission right after refining the space origin source. Within 10,000 years, he had defeated great immortal Yang Mei, who had also refined the essence of space, and seized the position of space sovereign. The mission was extremely perverted, because great immortal Yang Mei was a space sovereign, and she was an existence that could oppress Hong Jun. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that this clearly stated the rules of the world. The position of supremacy could only be assumed by one person. Yi Chen was now a Thunder Element Supremacy. If Hong Jun wanted to control the Thunder Great Tao, he had to defeat Yi Chen. Furthermore, he had to defeat Yi Chen after Yi Chen had mastered the Thunder Great Tao. Only then could he truly become the Thunder Element Supremacy and control the Thunder Great Tao. Otherwise, Hong Jun would forever be second to the Thunder Element. This was the restriction of the rules of the 3,000 Great Tao. By the time Yi Chen mastered the Thunder Great Tao, Yi Chen would definitely have become a sage. At that time, how could Yi Chen be afraid of Hong Jun? Even if Hong Jun had attained the Tao integration realm, Yi Chen would still not take him seriously. This was because Yi Chen walked the path of using strength to prove his Tao. Once he succeeded, even if it was the heavenly Tao, Yi Chen would not be afraid. It was also because of this that Yi Chen was so excited. Damn it, He had not expected that he would be able to take advantage of someone with a low cultivation level. Not bad, not bad. Stop, Hu Hongjun. Ha ha ha. At the moment, Yi Chen's cultivation level was low. Hongjun could not do anything to Yi Chen at all. This was the complete opposite of Yi Chen, who could challenge Yang Mei, the space supremacy, at any time. If Hongjun wanted to challenge Yi Chen and snatch the title of Thunder Element Supremacy, he would have to wait for Yi Chen's cultivation level to increase. However, Yi Chen could challenge Great Immortal Yang Mei at any time. When his Thunder Element Great Tao perfected, he would control the Thunder Element Heavenly Punishment and strike whoever he wanted. At the thought of this, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, his mind moved. In the next second, Yi Chen appeared directly outside Luoyang City. Yi Chen's lips curled slightly as he glanced at the sky full of stars. Then, he pointed at the sky with his right hand. Thunder! As soon as Yi Chen's voice landed, the cloudless night sky was suddenly filled with dark clouds. In the next second, the sound of thunder that shook heaven and earth was heard. Rumble, the thunder was very loud, and it shook the world until it buzzed. The players, civilians, soldiers, and generals in Luoyang City, and even the great Han Emperor Lu Hong, all shuddered at this moment. Some even fell to the ground. The thunder was too loud, so loud that many people were deafened by this loud thunder. Just as the players and natives in Luoyang City were dumbfounded and even frightened, thousands of lightning bolts as thick as water tanks suddenly fell. Boom! 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 The land that was suddenly covered by dark clouds instantly became as bright as day. At this moment, the ground also began to shake violently. Outside Luoyang City, beside the thousands of ferocious giant lightning bolts, Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. The magic power consumption was 90% less than before. At the thought of this, Yi Chen's lips curled up as he took a step forward. In the next second, Yi Chen walked into the distorted space and disappeared. After Yi Chen left, the entire Luoyang City was in an uproar. F***ck. What the hell was that? Who was struck by lightning? What did you say? I can't hear you. F***ck. That thunder is too F***king loud. This daddy's ears are about to be deafened. Thunder is nothing. Look at that lightning. F***ck. Is that even lightning? It's so thick. If it fell into a crowd, how many people would be struck to death? Look, the lightning in the inn is gone. F***ck. Could it be that those thousands of lightning bolts were made by Yi Chen? I think it's very possible. Think about it. Normal thunder can't bring down tens of thousands of lightning bolts at once, and they're as thick as a water tank. What's more, Yi Chen seems to be the only player who knows magic. F***ck. That's really the case. If that's the case, does that mean Yi Chen's lightning magic has reached great mastery? Who knows what great mastery is for lightning magic? Anyway, I only know one thing. Yi Chen is F***king crazy again. Sigh. Comparisons are odious. I'm going to sleep. I'm just waiting for tomorrow's auction. I'm going to sleep too. F***ck. It's best to behave ourselves when we see Yi Chen in the future. If we make Yi Chen unhappy, we'll all die if he strikes us with lightning. Let's go, let's go. We can't see anything from here. If we make Yi Chen unhappy, he might just casually throw a bolt of lightning at us. Just as the players were discussing, the citizens of Luoyang City were kneeling on the ground in horror. They were praying to the heavens for forgiveness. From their point of view, the thousands of lightning bolts that suddenly fell was the wrath of the heavens. Otherwise, why would there be so many lightning bolts that were as thick as a water tank? Luoyang Palace. Lu Hong's face was pale as he looked at the night sky that had returned to normal. After a while, he looked at Zhang Li beside him and asked, Father, tell me. Father Rang, tell me, is this a warning from the heavens? Chapter 563. Lu Hong's eyes wandered a little, but more than that, there was fear in them. Although he tried his best to hide it, he could not hide the negative emotions in his eyes. At this moment, the golden turban had been destroyed, and the demon clan had been wiped out, but it had happened after all. Even though he knew that the crisis had been eliminated, Lu Hong still had a fear that had not been completely dispelled in his heart. And this fear broke out with the sudden appearance of thousands of thunderbolts outside Luoyang City. Lu Hong began to be suspicious again, and then he began to be suspicious. Zhang Li, who was next to Lu Hong, heard Lu Hong's question, and his face changed slightly, but he immediately returned to normal, because he did not dare to let Lu Hong see the change in his expression. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Zhang Li felt some suspicion from Lu Hong's words. Suspicions and jealousy were nothing. Everyone had suspicions and jealousy in their hearts. However, if the suspicions and jealousy came from the emperor, then it was different, because the result of the emperor's suspicion was often bloody and unreasonable. In Zhang Li's view, Lu Hong's suspicion was most likely aimed at Yu of Beech's general of agile cavalry, Yi Chen. As for the reason, it was very simple. At this moment, in the Great Han Empire, only general of agile cavalry, Yi Chen, had the capital to make Lu Hong suspicious. It was also for this reason that Zhang Li's face suddenly changed. In Zhang Li's view, Yi Chen was an indispensable and important figure in the eunuch. If there was a problem, Yi Chen could not have a problem. Otherwise, the eunuch's prestige and confidence in the imperial court would be severely restricted. This was not what Zhang Li wanted to see. Thinking of this, Zhang Li carefully glanced at Lu Hong, and then bowed and said, "His Majesty is the Emperor and the Lord of Heaven and Earth. Otherwise, a hero like you of Beech would not have appeared in the Great Han Empire during the turmoil. The lightning just now. In my opinion, it was the heavens removing the remaining demon aura in the human world. After all, the demon clan has just been wiped out by Yu of Beech. There must be some demon aura left in the human world." Zhang Li was naturally talking nonsense, but when it entered Lu Hong's ears, it was very reasonable and well-founded. In fact, Zhang Li had no choice but to say this. He did not want Lu Hong to suspect Yi Chen again because of the sudden appearance of the terrifying lightning outside Luoyang. After Lu Hong heard Zhang Li's words, he was slightly startled. Then, he looked outside Luoyang City. After a while, Lu Hong let out a long breath and said, "Father Rang is right. My country is protected by Yu of Beech. Furthermore, I have already granted 2 princesses to Yu of Beech. Yu of Beech will not betray me." When Lu Hong said this, the gaze in his eyes finally became much more resolute. This time, Lu Hong did not say anything about the warning of the heavens. Instead, he directly called out Yi Chen's name. It was very clear that Lu Hong really did suspect Yi Chen again. And the source was the sudden appearance of the lightning outside Luoyang City. If Yi Chen knew about this, he would definitely feel a headache. Of course, Yi Chen did not know, so Yi Chen would not feel a headache. In fact, even if Yi Chen knew that Lu Hong was suspecting him again, he would not care. This was because Yi Chen was very clear on one thing. Great eunuch Zhang Li, who regarded him as one of his own, would not just stand by and watch. He would definitely think of a way to act and protect Yi Chen's interests. This was something that Yi Chen was very certain of. After all, Yi Chen had always been building himself up as a pillar of the Great Han with illustrious military achievements and a mainstay of the eunuchs faction. Of course, these 2 senses were relative to the civil, military, and eunuchs of the court. No matter which faction, they all believed that Yi Chen was on their side. And this was all thanks to Guo Yi's original plan. Although Yi Chen had made plans when he went to Luoyang for the first time, Guo Yi had supplemented Yi Chen's plan. This allowed Yi Chen to move between the 2 factions without the slightest flaw. After Zhang Li heard Lu Hong's words full of emotion and forcibly convincing himself, he immediately beamed with joy and said, "Your Majesty is correct. However, Your Majesty, this servant feels that you of Beech's marriage is a major matter. Moreover, it concerns the country. It cannot be sloppy or delayed. Your Majesty might as well directly confirm the time, and let the great general of agile cavalry get married as soon as possible. This way, all the rebels and traitors of the great Han will be afraid and not dare to act rashly. At first glance, Zhang Li's words sounded like he was thinking for Lu Hong. In fact, there was a hidden meaning in his words. To be precise, Zhang Li was hinting to Lu Hong that Yi Chen was not a threat to the great Han. The real threat was those rebels and traitors who wanted to steal the country of the great Han. The great general of agile cavalry, Yi Chen, was actually loyal. Yes. Let father quickly find someone to calculate the time. You of Beech's marriage, the sooner the better. When Lu Hong heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up, and then he said excitedly. Lu Hong's words were full of pleasant surprise and relief. It was obvious that Lu Hong's suspicion and fear of Yi Chen had been eliminated by 99%. The only fear he had was whether or not Yi Chen would be able to marry De Qiao and Xiao Qiao. For Lu Hong, the sooner Yi Chen married Princess De Qiao and Princess Changle Xiao Qiao, the happier he would be. Of course, he would also feel more at ease. Hearing this, Zhang Li inwardly let out a sigh of relief. With a flattering expression, he bowed and said, "Yes, Your Majesty. This servant will go find someone to calculate the auspicious time and date, so that you of Beech can marry Princess Zhaoyang and Princess Changle as soon as possible." "Good. Go quickly," Lu Hong said with a laugh. Zhang Li nodded his head with a smile on his face. He then bowed again and hurriedly left the main hall. After Zhang Li left the main hall and arrived at a deserted corner, he looked left and right before waving his hand towards a dark area. In the next second, a young eunuch hurriedly ran over, then bowed and said, "This is the first time. This servant pays respects to eunuch." Zhang Li nodded his head and then said in a deep voice, "Quickly go find you of Beech and tell you of Beech to make sure that the betrothal gifts are generous. If there are any difficulties with the betrothal gifts, tell you of Beech. This servant will help him. In addition, dispatch 10,000 imperial guards to bring Princess Zhaoyang and Princess Changle to the palace." Hearing this, the young eunuch stared blankly for a moment before bowing and asking, "Eunuch, is you of Beech still in Luoyang?" Obviously, this young eunuch knew that Yi Chen had left Luoyang after leaving Zhang Li's residence. Otherwise, he would not have asked this question. Hearing this, Zhang Li pondered for a moment before nodding his head with absolute certainty. Previously, the great general of agile cavalry might have left. However, His Imperial Majesty has already issued an imperial edict. The great general of agile cavalry will definitely return to Luoyang and wait to marry the two princesses. How about this? Send more people and split them into two groups. One group will search for you of Beech in Luoyang, and the other group will head to Yuzhou. They must find you of Beech as soon as possible and pass on this servant's words to you of Beech. Delay and change may occur. Zhang Li said that things might change if things were delayed. Naturally, he was worried that Lu Hong would become suspicious again. If it were someone else, perhaps Zhang Li would not be clear. However, Zhang Li understood Lu Hong all too well. It was precisely because of this that Zhang Li wanted to quickly settle De Qiao, Xiao Qiao, and Yi Chen's marriages. Only when Yi Chen married the two princesses of the great Han dynasty was settled would Lu Hong completely abandon his suspicions of Yi Chen. Then, Yi Chen would be safe and sound. Only when Yi Chen was safe and sound would the eunuchs be at the peak of their power, crushing all the civil and military officials of the great Han dynasty and feeling proud and elated. After all, Yi Chen belonged to the eunuchs. With Yi Chen present, all the civil and military officials of the great Han dynasty would feel ashamed, not daring to raise their heads. It was obvious that all the civil and military officials of the great Han dynasty had a headache over the golden turban and were helpless against the demon race. No one could solve the disaster that the great Han dynasty was facing. In the end, it was the capable person of the eunuchs, the great general of agile cavalry, Yi Chen, who took action and resolved all of this. Therefore, as long as Yi Chen was present, all the civil and military officials of the great Han dynasty would be crushed by the eunuchs. Moreover, they would be completely crushed. It was also for these reasons that Zhang Li did his best to help Yi Chen. Of course, this was Zhang Li's own opinion, and it was his unwavering opinion. Otherwise, Zhang Li would not have wholeheartedly helped Yi Chen just because of the money that Yi Chen provided. Unfortunately, what Zhang Li did not know was that all of this was his imagination. Yi Chen did not belong to any faction at all. Whether it was the eunuchs or the civil and military officials of the great Han dynasty, all of their beliefs and all of their opinions were illusions that Yi Chen had designed long ago. After hearing Zhang Li's order, the young eunuch hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, eunuch." Chapter 564. Hearing the eunuch's words, Zhang Li nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "Go quickly." "Yes, eunuch." "Eunuch." The little eunuch nodded his head heavily. He then turned around and hurriedly left the place. Zhang Li glanced at the departing eunuch with a slight smile, then headed straight for the imperial astronomer. Zhang Li's goal was very simple. Together with the officials of the imperial astronomer, he wanted to select the most auspicious day. Afterwards, he would have Grand General of Agile Cavalry Yi Chen marry Princess De Qiao and Princess Chang'e Xiaoqiao. Luoyang in Sky Room. Space suddenly distorted. In the next second, Yi Chen stepped out and appeared in the room. At this moment, a world announcement sounded. Ding! Player Qin Yan has successfully crossed the eastern region and entered the American region. The border barrier will be removed in 7 days. The world announcement repeated 3 times, instantly causing the eastern region's world channel to boil. Holy shit! Holy shit! Who's Qin Yan? Idiot! Didn't the world announcement say that she's the second person to become an emperor-level general? What bullshit second emperor-level general? I'll tell you. Qin Yan is actually Yi Chen's head. I saw her follow Yi Chen to the inn with my own eyes. Not long after, she advanced. Holy shit, it can't be. Didn't Boss Yi Chen not accept women in the real world? Could it be that Qin Yan is devastatingly beautiful, even more beautiful than the historical beauties? Devastatingly beautiful, my ass. She's like an iceberg. She's a bit beautiful, but she can't compare to the historical beauties. Then how did she advance so quickly after following Yi Chen to the inn? F***ck, how am I supposed to know? All I know is that Qin Yan is F***king lucky. Not only did she advance to the next level, but she also F***king advanced to another level. Hehe, why do I have a feeling that Qin Yan was sent to the United States by Yi Chen? No matter what you say, I don't believe that Yi Chen would help Qin Yan. Yi Chen wants beauty. There are many beauties in that beauty's alliance. They even went to look for Yi Chen, but Yi Chen didn't accept them at all. F***ck, you guys didn't get to the main point, okay? The border barrier will disappear in 7 days. That's the main point, okay? F***ck, doesn't this mean that we can go to other countries' gaming areas to play in the future? Just as the players were having a heated discussion, the world announcement sounded again. Ding! A special world storyline, The Chaotic World, will be officially activated when the border barrier is removed in 7 days. At that time, all major game regions will be free to attack and kill foreign characters. You will be rewarded with experience, equipment, skills, and merit points. Players from all over the world can participate. The world announcement was repeated 3 times, and the Eastern Gaming Area's world channel exploded. F***ck. Not only will the border barrier be removed in 7 days, but there's also a chaotic world storyline with so many rewards. Are they encouraging us to fight other countries? F***ck. The world announcement has already made it clear. Once the border barrier is removed in 7 days, a world war will break out immediately. Haha, let's go. Kill, cripple, and impregnate the foreign gaming areas. Hee hee, I like that too. We'll go to other countries, steal all their wild bosses, destroy their capital cities, and kill them all to level 0. Ha ha ha, I think so too. The first country we're going to take down is Japan. That's right, Japan. Kill all their men and steal all their women. We'll kill those bastards in India too. By the way, there's also the Koreans. Hee hee, we'll kill all of them. We won't let any of them go. In the past, we could only think about it, but now we can do it directly. Isn't this great? Ha ha ha, Boss Ichin, please take me with you. Let's form a team to take down Japan, the Koreans, India, and Indonesia. Yes, yes, yes. Boss Ichin, you're the #1 person in the human race. You're the strongest in the East. As long as Boss Ichin says the word, I'm willing to follow it. I'm willing to. Wipe out Japan and occupy Tokyo. Tokyo is a little hot, Haven't you guys realized that this is an opportunity? Boss Yi-chun wants to dominate the world. We definitely can't win, but we can set our sights on other countries. We can steal their resources and take everything they have. Ha ha, yes, yes. Boss Yi-chun, we won't compete with Boss Yi-chun for the position of the Great Han Empire. We only hope that Boss Yi-chun can take us abroad and take everything. +1. +10086. The League of Tyrants is willing to serve you of Beech, Yi-chun as the Commander-in-Chief. As long as you of Beech is willing to lead the League of Tyrants to occupy Japan, the League of Tyrants promises to permanently withdraw from the power struggle. We will never be enemies with you of Beech. The Blue Moon Pavilion is willing to serve you of Beech, Yi-chun as the Commander-in-Chief. As long as you of Beech is willing to lead the Blue Moon Pavilion to occupy India, the Blue Moon Pavilion promises to permanently withdraw from the Great Han Empire. We will never be enemies with you of Beech. At the same time, the Blue Moon Pavilion will do all we can to help those who attack you of Beech. The World Channel was abuzz with activity. Yi-chun, who was in the sky room of the inn, frowned. Yi-chun knew that the border barrier would disappear, but it was not time yet. Of course, this was the time in Yi-chun's memory of his previous life. In fact, the border barrier would disappear a long time ago because Qin Yen had crossed the border. As for Yi-chun, he frowned not because he was worried, but because Yi-chun's plan had been affected. Yi-chun had to enter the secret realm of the underground palace, steal the 9 cauldrons of the ancient kingdom, refine the 5 elements spiritual pearl, forge the 5 elements divine body, and go to the sea to find the 3 immortal island. The former wouldn't take too long, so Yi-chun wasn't worried. However, the second point was that Yi-chun needed a lot of time. After all, the 5 elements spiritual pearl was a natural spiritual treasure. Even if he used the Enlightenment Stone, it would not be easy to refine it. As for finding the 3 immortal island, although Yi-chun was confident, it would take a long time to find it. It had to be known that the game world was the same as the real world. The area had increased by 100 times. Under such circumstances, it would not be easy to find the 3 immortal island in the vast sea. Of course, although it would not be easy, Yi-chun was still confident. After all, Yi-chun's divine sense could already cover a radius of 10,000 miles. Compared to other players, this was a huge advantage. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yi-chun's plan was affected because the border barrier was about to disappear. Damn it, I didn't expect the border barrier to disappear so early. It's just an alliance army. It's fine if they don't appear like in my previous life. If they appear, I'll destroy them all. The alliance army that Yi-chun was thinking of appeared not long after the border barrier disappeared in Yi-chun's previous life. Sea and land, 2 routes. The number of foreign players attacking the eastern region was simply ridiculous. Among them, the Indians had the most people. At that time, The Eastern Region's players had not been excited for long before they were beaten back by the Alliance army. It could not be helped. The other party's cultivation level was not lower than the Eastern Region's players. Moreover, their numbers were far greater than the Eastern Region's players. More importantly, many people in the Eastern Region were unwilling to lose their strength and slack off. They were even willing to be traitors in exchange for benefit. In the eyes of these people, the world had become like this. There was no need to worry about the East. As long as they could maintain their strength, it would be fine. Unfortunately, what they did not know was that this world war was actually a war to plunder Providence. Chapter 565. The so-called Providence plunder was the literal meaning of snatching the providence of heaven and earth that belonged to the country. As long as the border barrier was removed and the World War began, the war for Providence plunder would officially begin. If one occupied 1/10 of another country's territory, Providence plunder would automatically activate. After the Providence plunder was activated, the more territory one occupied, the more Providence plunder would automatically increase. If a country was directly destroyed, then all the heaven and earth fate of the destroyed country would be snatched away. Of course, even if all of the Providence plunder of a destroyed country was taken away, it was not impossible to recover. As long as the players of a destroyed country could defeat the invading enemies, they could regain the Providence plunder. However, this was only in theory. In reality, it was very difficult for destroyed countries to regain the Providence plunder. One had to know that dying in a world war was the same as dying in a normal time. One would directly lose 10 levels. In this way, it was impossible to not lose levels. As for the players of destroyed countries, their levels would generally drop. This was without a doubt. Therefore, it was basically impossible for the players of destroyed countries to fight back, defeat the invading countries, and snatch back the Providence plunder that belonged to their country. Even if they secretly killed monsters to level up and recover their strength, it was useless because the invading players would not let them continue to develop. To the invading players, the players of destroyed countries were actually natural monsters. Killing them would give them EXP and merit, so no one would give up such a big meal. In Yi Chen's previous life, some countries had all tried to fight back after being destroyed in the game world, and some had even done so many times. However, without exception, they all failed. Not long after, they disappeared in the dust of history. Whether it was the game world or the real world, they had completely disappeared. As for the reason, it was very simple. Their strength had been severely damaged, and after the protective barriers of the safe cities in the real world had failed, they had lost the ability to protect themselves. How could they fight back against the monsters, demonic beasts, evil spirits, and other monsters that covered the land, oceans, rivers, and valleys in the real world? There was only one result if they could not fight back, and that was to be devoured and then completely killed. This reality was very cruel and bloody, but it was the reality. There was no humanity or mercy to speak of. It could be said that the world war that was about to begin was a war of Providence plunder, and it was a survival war of the strong and the weak. The players of the victorious country would obtain more heaven and earth providence. The players of a failed country would lose everything and disappear forever. In this survival battle, even if the country was not destroyed and only a portion of the heaven and earth providence was stolen, it would still affect all the players in the country. The reason was simple. The heaven and earth fate of a country would radiate and affect all players in that country. The more prosperous the country's heaven and earth providence was, the more opportunities the players of the country would obtain after ascending, and the more they would be able to gain a foothold in the chaos world. The less heaven and earth providence a country had, the more likely it was that a portion of it had been plundered. If the players of the country did not ascend, it would be fine. Once they did, there was a high chance that they would end up in a miserable state. One had to know that in the great desolate world, other than strength being respected, What was important was the chi of heaven and earth. Without chi of heaven and earth, no matter how strong you were, you would still turn into ashes. If this was the case for experts and almighties, there was no need to mention the players who didn't have much providence to begin with. If a portion of their providence was stolen, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was also because Yi Chen knew the crux of fate that he desperately wanted to obtain the 9 cauldrons of the ancient kingdom. This was because the 9 cauldrons of the Protector Kingdom could suppress the providence of heaven and earth and prevent the providence of the empire from flowing away. Only in this way would Yi Chen's empire continue to prosper. Furthermore, the destiny of Yi Chen's empire would continue to grow as Yi Chen fought. Eventually, it would establish itself in the Your Wilds world. It was also because he wanted to establish himself in the primordial world that Yi Chen chose to stay in the 3 Kingdoms beginner's zone and lay a good foundation. Yi Chen knew what providence was. He also knew what it meant when a world war began. However, none of the players knew. Whether it was the players in the Eastern Gaming Zone or the players in the Foreign Gaming Zone, no one knew this. The reason why they invaded was to reap benefit. Some foreign players had occupied other countries. At first glance, they had reaped a lot of benefits, but in reality, they had reaped far more benefit. The most important thing was that they had reaped more heaven and earth providence. In Yi Chen's previous life, the great Han Empire of the Eastern Gaming Zone had almost been destroyed by the Alliance army. If it wasn't for the fact that the various feudal lords had joined forces against the Alliance army, the Eastern Gaming Zone might have really been destroyed by the Alliance army. The root cause of this situation was that there were too many players who didn't want to be injured and didn't care about the survival of the Eastern Gaming Zone. Although killing the invading foreign players gave experience and merit points, it was useless. These players who didn't want to be injured and didn't care about the survival of the Eastern Gaming Zone weren't willing to participate in the war. Even if they did participate in the war, they would only choose to enter when the war was won and then reap the reward. They wouldn't fight the invading foreign players head-on. Of course, the reason why the Eastern Gaming Zone almost fell was also because of some players who were willing to be traitors in exchange for benefit. They sold the military intelligence of the Eastern Gaming Zone in exchange for money, equipment, and technique. It was also because of this intelligence that the Eastern Gaming Zone fell into danger hundreds of times. Of course, in the end, the Eastern Gaming Zone still managed to repel the invaders. However, the price they paid was simply too great. Most of the people's strength fell severely, and this also caused the population of the real world to rapidly shrink. There was no other way. There were countless monsters and ferocious beasts in the real world. They didn't care about morality or benevolence. When they saw someone, they would eat. These were the memories of Yi Chen's previous life. Now, after the border barrier was removed, the World War was about to begin. Yi Chen's current feelings were completely different from his previous life. In his previous life, Yi Chen was very weak and miserable. However, he didn't retreat. Not only did he not retreat, but he also thought of ways to kill the invading foreign players. It was because of this action of Yi Chen's that Yi Chen was able to ascend to the primordial age. Of course, that was in his previous life. In this life, Yi Chen's strength was abnormally tyrannical. Not only was he the number 1 player in the Eastern Gaming Zone, but he was also the number 1 player in the entire world. Therefore, the current Yi Chen didn't think much of the World War. He only thought about how many foreign players he had killed and how many countries he had annihilated. Of course, no matter how strong Yi Chen was, he couldn't stop the other players from being selfish, despicable, and shameless. As long as Yi Chen took the initiative to attack and steal the providence of other countries and annihilate them, the players in the Eastern Gaming Zone would definitely act upon hearing the news and follow him to reap the benefits. Yi Chen knew this, but he didn't care. This was because no matter how others reaped the benefits, the providence they stole would eventually become Yi Chen's providence. It belonged only to Yi Chen. This was because one of Yi Chen's goals was to unify the world, establish a providence dynasty, and then ascend. Once such a goal was achieved, all the providence in the Eastern Gaming Zone would be taken away by Yi Chen. Moreover, it would belong only to Yi Chen. In fact, the World War, which hid the Providence battle, had started in advance. Moreover, it started before Yi Chen's goals were completed. For Yi Chen, this was an accident. It could be said to be a pleasant surprise, but it could also be said to be an opportunity. Originally, Yi Chen had planned to give up. Who would have thought that this opportunity would appear in advance? Yi Chen didn't want to miss it. Of course, participating in the World War had nothing to do with patriotism. Yi Chen only wanted to reap benefits. In his previous life, Yi Chen didn't think about these things. In this life, Yi Chen didn't think about these things either. If there had to be a righteous reason, it would be national righteousness. After all, Yi Chen was a member of the East. If the East was destroyed, Yi Chen would also be affected. There was no doubt about this. Yi Chen didn't want to see such a situation happen. As for hatred for those foreign countries, it didn't matter. In Yi Chen's view, the whole world had changed. Everything was for survival. Of course, it was also for benefit. Therefore, in the final analysis, it could be summed up in one sentence. The weak were prey to the strong, and the survival of the fittest. In this cruel world, there was no mercy, no sympathy, and no fairness. If one wanted to live and live well, or even become a person above others and stand at the top of the world, then one had to fight, snatch, and fight. And this was exactly what Yi Chen thought. Of course, this was what Yi Chen had always been doing. 7 days, 7 days. Although it wasn't a lot, it was enough. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly flashed. At this moment, there was a sudden and careful knock on the door of the sky room where Yi Chen was. Knock, knock, knock. Chapter 566. When Yi Chen heard the knock on the door, he immediately frowned and released his divine sense. In the next second, Yi Chen was stunned. A eunuch, Yi Chen originally thought that the person knocking on the door was a player. After all, Yi Chen had specifically instructed the innkeeper not to disturb him. But now that someone was knocking on the door, Yi Chen naturally thought of a player. However, the truth was somewhat out of Yi Chen's expectations. The person knocking on the door wasn't a player or the innkeeper, but a young eunuch. Could it be that Zhang Li sent someone to follow me and knew that I hadn't left the city? Impossible. No one in the Three Kingdoms novice region can escape my divine sense. If someone dared to follow me, I would have noticed it immediately. If he wasn't following me, then he must have sent someone to find me. He must have determined that I'm in Luoyang. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent someone to look for me in Luoyang. Could it be? Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He then looked at the door and said indifferently, "Come in." As soon as Yi Chen said this, the door was gently pushed open. In the next second, a young eunuch entered with a flattering expression. Then, he respectfully bowed to Yi Chen. "This servant greets you, Lord Beach. Why did Zhang Changsha send you here?" Yi Chen nodded and asked. When the young eunuch heard Yi Chen's question, he couldn't help but be stunned. This was because Yi Chen wasn't surprised at all when he saw him. Not only was he not surprised, but he even directly mentioned Zhang Li. This was truly out of the young eunuch's expectations. Of course, being surprised was one thing. The young eunuch didn't dare delay and hastily bowed. "Reporting to you, Lord Beach, Zhang Changsha sent this servant to inform you, Lord Beach, that you must prepare a generous betrothal gift. If the betrothal gift is difficult, Zhang Changsha will help you, Lord Beach." Betrothal gift. It really had something to do with Big Qiao and Little Qiao. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He then nodded with a chuckle and said, "Express my gratitude to Zhang Changsha for me. Also, tell Zhang Changsha that I am not an ungrateful person. If there is any need, just send someone to Samsara City." Yi Chen's tone and expression were extremely serious. No matter who saw it, they couldn't see a trace of falsehood. Because Zhongli had helped Yi Chen had to do something. Otherwise, Zhongli would definitely suspect Yi Chen. In this way, how could Yi Chen continue to make use of Zhongli? How could he make Zhongli take the initiative to speak for Yi Chen and help Yi Chen solve some troubles? It was also for this reason that Yi Chen said something that was somewhat obscure but, in fact, very straightforward. And Yi Chen's purpose was to let Zhongli know one thing: Yi Chen will be the backing of the eunuch group. At that time, he will have both money and soldiers. When the little eunuch heard this, he immediately smiled flatteringly. Then he bowed respectfully and said, "You of Beech, rest assured. I will pass on you of Beech's original words to Zhang Changsha word for word." The little eunuch was Zhang Li's subordinate. Naturally, he knew that Yi Chen was one of them. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so flattering and respectful. Of course, the most important thing was that even Zhang Li, the chief eunuch, wanted to win over Yi Chen. How could the little eunuch dare to slight Yi Chen? In addition, with Yi Chen's current status and reputation, the little eunuch wouldn't dare to be disrespectful to Yi Chen. It was fine if he didn't meet Yi Chen normally, but now that he met him, he still had to flatter him. Wasn't that stupid? If he really dared to slight Yi Chen, once Zhongli found out, he would definitely suffer a fate worse than death. When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at the little eunuch with a flattering face. Then he said with a smile, "Then, I'll have to trouble you with this matter." When the little eunuch heard Yi Chen's amiable tone, he immediately beamed with joy and bowed. "It's no trouble, no trouble. To be able to work for you of Beech is this servant's fortune. This servant can't ask for anything more." Yi Chen laughed and then waved his right hand. A golden brick appeared out of thin air. When the little eunuch saw the golden brick in Yi Chen's hand, his two eyes suddenly opened wide. He thought that Yi Chen would give him a reward, but he didn't think that Yi Chen would give him a golden brick. For the little eunuch, this reward was extremely attractive because he had never received such a big benefit before. Yi Chen glanced at the little eunuch who tried to hide his greedy eyes. Then he said with a smile, "Take it and drink some tea." As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, he threw the golden brick in his right hand at the little eunuch. When the little eunuch saw this, he hastily reached out and caught the golden brick. Then he bowed to Yi Chen with incomparable excitement. "Thank you, you of Beech, for your generous reward." When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and then he said with a smile, "There is still something I need you to do. This matter is not easy." When the little eunuch heard this, he knelt down without hesitation and said loudly, "I am willing to go through water and tread on fire for you of Beech, even if I have to die 1,000 times." When Yi Chen heard this, he laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, you are very good. When you are free, you can go to Samsara city and have some fun." When the little eunuch heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up. He then bowed in ecstasy. "Thank you, you of Beech, for your appreciation. When I am free, I will definitely go to Samsara city and pay a visit to you of Beech, master." At this moment, the little eunuch was very excited and moved because Yi Chen had invited him. This meant that he had been chosen by Yi Chen, and more importantly, that he would be chosen by Zhongli. In the future, he would definitely have a bright future. After all, Yi Chen was a very important figure in the group of eunuchs. Even Zhongli had to be on good terms with Yi Chen, and even try his best to win over Yi Chen. Now that Yi Chen had invited him, once Zhongli knew, how could he not have a meteoric rise in his career? When Yi Chen heard the little eunuch's surprised words, he smiled and nodded. Then he waved his right hand. In the next second, 200 chests full of rare treasures appeared in the living room. If the living room of the heaven room wasn't small, it would have been full in an instant. When the little eunuch saw this, he was stunned. Although the chests were closed, none of the chests were tightly closed. From the gaps in the chests there were several or even a dozen rare treasures. Furthermore, all of them were emitting a dazzling light. With a single glance, one could tell that they were extremely valuable. The little eunuch didn't have any rare treasures, but he had been to Lu Hong's treasure house and seen a lot of them. Therefore, his eyesight was absolutely excellent. It was because of his eyesight that the little eunuch was shocked by Yi Chen's generosity. Because of the 200 chests of rare treasures that Yi Chen took out, even though he only saw the ones that were exposed, the little eunuch was certain that all the rare treasures in the chests were of the highest quality. Furthermore, they were far superior to the rare treasures in Lu Hong's treasury. Just when the little eunuch was shocked, Yi Chen waved his right hand again, and another 100 chests appeared in the living room. All of a sudden, in the whole living room, there was only a 1-meter-wide path leading to the door. The rest of the space was occupied by chests. These were Yi Chen's gains. To be precise, they were the gains from Yi Chen's elimination of the Golden Turbans and the Monster Clan. After all, killing the Golden Turbans and the Monster Clan didn't only drop equipment and cultivation methods. Money, rare treasures, and other worldly things would also drop. Yi Chen's space was piled with countless rare treasures. These 300 chests of rare treasures were just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, Yi Chen didn't value them, but it didn't mean that others didn't value them. It also didn't mean that Lu Hong didn't value them. As long as these rare treasures entered Lu Hong's sight, Lu Hong would inevitably be so excited that he couldn't sleep. Because each of these rare treasures had a sky-high price, and the price was calculated in purple gold coins. If a specific number had to be given, then it would be 100,000 purple gold coins, and this was the price of the worst rare treasure. According to the exchange rate in this world, 1 purple gold coin was equivalent to 10,000 gold coins, and 1 gold coin was equivalent to 1 credit point in the real world. 100,000 purple gold coins were equivalent to 1 billion credit points. A single chest could store more than 50 rare treasures. One could imagine how valuable these 300 chests of rare treasures that Yi Chen took out were. Yi Chen glanced at the 300 chests that almost filled the living room, and then said, "These rare treasures were obtained by chance. Among them, 200 chests will be sent to the palace as betrothal gift. The other 100 chests will be given to Zhang Changshi." Chapter 567. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, the young eunuch, who had been shocked by the value of the treasures, immediately came back to his senses. With a gulp, he swallowed hard. Although the young eunuch didn't have much status in the palace, he wasn't stupid. He naturally knew why Zhang Li had sent him to find Yi Chen. It looked like Yi Chen wanted to express to the world how important he was to the two princesses. In reality, Zhang Li had purposely asked Yi Chen to do this for Lu Hong to see. As for the purpose, it was to make Lu Hong feel at ease, so that he would no longer fear Yi Chen and doubt Yi Chen. Of course, the fact that Lu Hong was afraid of Yi Chen didn't spread, but the young eunuch knew about it. This was because he was one of the young eunuchs who served Lu Hong. As long as Lu Hong wasn't in the palace, he and the other young eunuchs would listen to Lu Hong's orders at any time. Although the young eunuch didn't speak most of the time, he always stood not far from Lu Hong, waiting for orders. Thus, he had heard the conversation between Lu Hong and Zhang Li. It was because he heard it that the young eunuch knew that Lu Hong was afraid and doubted Yi Chen. He also knew why Lu Hong wanted De Qiao and Xiao Qiao to be his daughters, and why he couldn't wait to marry his daughters to Yi Chen. Of course, this had nothing to do with the young eunuch, but it didn't stop the young eunuch from making his judgment. As long as Yi Chen expressed his joy and importance in marrying the two princesses, then he would be able to completely dispel the last bit of fear and doubt in Lu Hong's heart. And now, what did the young eunuch see? 300 chests of treasures were casually taken out by Yi Chen. Although 100 of them were for Zhang Li, the other 200 were genuine betrothal gifts for the two princesses of the Great Han Empire. This was no longer a simple betrothal gift. This was simply ferocious. It was so ferocious that even the little eunuch, who had seen many big scenes, felt his heart tremble. Damn it, the value of this sky-high betrothal gift was already through the roof. Even if all of Lu Hong's wealth was added together, it would still not be comparable to the value of these 200 boxes of rare treasures. If Lu Hong saw these 200 boxes of rare treasures, he would definitely be extremely excited. He would even wake up from his sleep laughing. The young eunuch was very sure of this, because he knew very well what Lu Hong's special hobby was. As long as there was money, a large amount of money, Lu Hong would be happy. As for Yi Chen, he directly took out 200 boxes of rare treasures. If Lu Hong was not excited, then it would be strange. In this way, Lu Hong would only remember Yi Chen's good points. He would not be able to think about how abnormal Yi Chen was or how valiant he was. And this was the fundamental reason for the young eunuch's indescribable shock. He did not expect Yi Chen to have such great courage. What the f*ck, money was like dirt to him. With great effort, the young eunuch steadied his heart, which had been shocked by the shocking betrothal gift. He hurriedly bowed to Yi Chen, extremely solemnly, and said, "This servant thanks you of Beech for your trust. This servant swears that I will do my best to not let you of Beech's betrothal gift be damaged. If it is damaged, this servant is willing to bring my head to see you." At this moment, the young eunuch's heart was very complicated. There was shock, astonishment, and also some emotion. This was because Yi Chen had unexpectedly given him the task of transporting rare treasures whose value exceeded the sky. If a few of the rare treasures were taken out during the transportation process, Yi Chen would certainly not know. Similarly, Zhang Li would also not know. Even Lu Hong would not know. Because Yi Chen did not intervene in this matter at all, nor did he take out the details of the rare treasures. This way, the young eunuch had enough room to operate. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yi Chen's decision, no matter how one looked at it, showed that he trusted the young eunuch. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not have given him the task of transporting the rare treasures whose value exceeded the sky. And this was the fundamental reason for the young eunuch's complicated feelings. Yi Chen glanced at the solemn and somewhat moved young eunuch, then nodded with a chuckle and said, "In that case, I will trouble you with this matter." "No trouble, no trouble. To be able to work for you of Beech is a good thing that cannot be exchanged for several lifetimes." When the young eunuch heard this, he immediately beamed with joy and bowed. Yi Chen laughed and was about to speak when the young eunuch suddenly thought of something and opened his mouth again. You of Beech, the betrothal gifts are not only rare treasures. There are also many things that need to be paid attention to. I don't know if the things that are missing in the betrothal gifts will be completed by this servant, or will you of Beech personally send people to prepare them? As soon as the young eunuch's words fell, Yi Chen could not help but be surprised. *K. The betrothal gifts still need to be prepared? Yi Chen had been reborn and knew a lot of things. However, regarding how to prepare the betrothal gifts for the princess, Yi Chen really did not know. Fortunately, this young eunuch wanted to take credit and pull strings. This saved him a lot of trouble. With this thought in mind, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he chuckled and said, "The demon race has just been wiped out. This king is temporarily unable to return to the territory. None of the people who followed this king out are aware of this. Therefore, I will have to trouble you with the missing parts of the betrothal gifts." You of Beech, you are overpraising this servant. This servant is eager to work for you of Beech. When the young eunuch heard this, he immediately beamed with joy. When Yi Chen heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Then, he waved his right hand. In the next second, a chest filled with purple gold coins instantly appeared in front of the young eunuch. Glancing at the chest filled with purple gold coins, Yi Chen chuckled and said, "If these purple gold coins are not enough, feel free to look for this king. This king will not leave Luoyang for the time being." When the young eunuch saw the chest suddenly appear in front of him, he was stunned. Now that he heard Yi Chen's words, the young eunuch's eyes suddenly became dazed. He had originally been guessing whether the chest that had just appeared was filled with copper coins, silver coins, or even gold coins. The only thing he did not guess was that it was purple gold coins. After all, the rest of the betrothal gifts had to be prepared. Even the best ones would not cost too much money. Otherwise, why would the young eunuch dare to promise that he would personally prepare the rest of the betrothal gifts? Of course, this was not important. What was important was that the chest was completely filled with purple gold coins. This point was truly beyond the young eunuch's expectations. After coming to his senses, the young eunuch greedily glanced at the chest on the ground. Then, he respectfully bowed and said, "Lord Yu of Beech, there is no need for so many. Even if you prepare the best ones, you won't need an entire chest, it's fine. If there are any leftovers, just take them for tea." When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at the young eunuch who still had some greediness in his eyes and chuckled. When the young eunuch heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed and said loudly, "This servant thanks Lord Yu of Beech for your reward." Yi Chen nodded with a smile. Just as he was about to speak, a world announcement suddenly rang out. Ding! Player Qin Yan has been killed by American players Jones and Breton. The time required for the removal of the border barrier has been shortened by 1 day. The world announcement rang out 3 times in a row, instantly causing an uproar in the world channel. Damn it! What trash! How could she be killed so quickly? She just *king passed. I'm also puzzled. It's the 2nd Emperor-level general. How could he be killed so quickly? Damn it. Even if he was surrounded and couldn't win, he could still run away. What a trash. That's right. Damn it. Be content. No matter how strong Qin Yan is, so what? She is not Yi Chen who can take on millions of people. It is normal for her to be killed. Chapter 568. It would be great if Yi Chen was the one who went to the American gaming area. What a pity! If Boss Yi Chen went to the American gaming area, he would definitely kill everyone and make them cry for their parents. That's for sure. *CK, what's Boss Yi Chen's realm? Nirvana realm. Other than Boss Yi Chen, the strongest person in the Eastern gaming area is an Emperor-level general. No matter how powerful those foreigners in the American gaming area are, how strong can they be? If they meet Boss Yi Chen, they will be tortured. We'll wait for the border barrier to be removed. At that time, as long as Boss Yi Chen goes out to battle, we brothers will follow. I will go too. If we follow Boss Yi Chen, we will definitely defeat all the foreigners. You guys are thinking too much. Yi Chen is not easy to talk to. What if he doesn't agree to others following him? Don't talk nonsense. Yi Chen is an authentic Asian. If we go to destroy the foreigners, Boss Yi Chen will definitely not stop us. That's right. I think so too. The world channel was abuzz with activity. After Yi Chen took a look, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. They want to follow behind and reap the benefits. Not bad, not bad. They can have such thoughts. The players of the Eastern region all praised Yi Chen's strength. Furthermore, it was a wide range of praise. If it were anyone else, they might feel complacent or even proud of themselves. However, Yi Chen would not. Although Yi Chen was in a good mood, it had nothing to do with the players' praises. To be precise, Yi Chen was in a good mood because of one thing. That was, the players wanted to follow behind Yi Chen and reap the benefits when he went to battle overseas. If it were in the past, Yi Chen would not agree to it. However, now, Yi Chen would not reject it. This was because Yi Chen's goal was to conquer foreign countries, destroy those foreign countries, and steal their fate. And when the players from the Eastern gaming region joined in and followed Yi Chen to reap the benefits, they would definitely take the initiative to kill the foreign players. This way, it would be impossible for Yi Chen to not save trouble. As for the fact that Qin Yan's death had shortened the time it would take for the barrier to disappear, Yi Chen didn't care. After all, what Yi Chen wanted to do now was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Of course, opening the secret realm in the underground palace, seizing the 9 cauldrons of the state, and marrying the Sunshine Princess de Qiao, with the exception of Princess Changle. For the former, Yi Chen could use the secret realm treasure map at any time to open the secret realm in the underground palace and lead his troops in. There would definitely be a battle, but it would definitely not last more than a day. On this point, Yi Chen was very sure. As for the latter, he could marry De Qiao and Xiao Qiao in one day. Although the date of the wedding hadn't been set yet, it wouldn't be too late. Of course, even if Big Qiao and Little Qiao were to be married at the wrong time, right after the opening of the borders, Yi Chen wouldn't be able to leave immediately. After all, Yi Chen's goal in participating in the World War was to destroy countries and steal their fate. As for the players from the Eastern Gaming region, they wouldn't be able to destroy a country in a short period of time. Even if the players from the Eastern Gaming region really did destroy a few countries and steal their fate, Yi Chen wouldn't care. This was because the players didn't have any treasures that could gather the fate of the world. The fate of the countries they destroyed would only gather in the Great Han Empire. After Yi Chen swept through the Eastern Gaming region, unified the world, and established a fate dynasty, the fate that the players stole would belong to Yi Chen in the end. As such, Yi Chen didn't care at all about whether or not the time it would take for the barrier to disappear would be shortened. Thinking about this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He then looked at the young eunuch and said, "I'll leave the matter of the betrothal gifts to you. Yes, Lord Yu of Beach. This servant will call someone to deliver the betrothal gifts so that His Majesty can see Yu of Beach's sincerity as soon as possible." When the eunuch heard this, he hurriedly and solemnly bowed. When Yi Chen heard this, he chuckled and nodded before saying, "Very well." After hearing Yi Chen's satisfied laughter, the eunuch gave a flattering smile and slapped his right hand, causing the chest of purple gold coins and the 100 chests of rare treasures to disappear without a trace. In the next second, the eunuch bowed to Yi Chen and hurriedly left the inn. Of the 300 chests of rare treasures, 100 chests were for Zhongli. The eunuch naturally wouldn't let these chests of rare treasures be exposed. Otherwise, if someone saw them, they would quickly reach Lu Hong's ears, and that wouldn't be a good thing. As for the remaining 200 chests of rare treasures, there was no such taboo. This was because these were the betrothal gifts, so it didn't matter who saw them. Moreover, it was suitable for people to see them, and it would be best if everyone knew about them. The more people knew that these were Yi Chen's betrothal gifts, the more it would show how much importance Yi Chen placed on marrying the 2 princesses. This was a good thing, but of course, the eunuch had done it on purpose. Otherwise, he would have just taken them away. There was no need to go through so much trouble. This eunuch was truly quite clever. As soon as Yi Chen thought of this, he frowned and looked outside the inn. A second later, Yi Chen's expression returned to normal, and he sat down in his chair and quietly waited. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the inn's owner, Wang Depang, arrived at Yi Chen's room. After hesitating for a moment, Wang Depang carefully bowed and said, "Your Excellency Ghost King, there are a few mutants who wish to pay their respects to you. I wonder if Your Excellency is interested?" Wang Depang's voice was trembling. Yi Chen had said not to disturb him, but Wang Depang had come to deliver the message. It would be strange if he wasn't afraid and worried. Yi Chen frowned, not because Wang Depang had come to deliver the message, but because of the players who had given Wang Depang gold coins to deliver the message. Yi Chen was inside the inn, so he couldn't see the situation outside. However, Yi Chen could see it with his divine sense. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have frowned. Luo Batian, Xin Wansan, Nangong Shisan, Gongsun Jingxiong, did they want to advance the transaction, or did they want to participate in the World War, or did they have other motives? Just as Yi Chen thought of this, Wang Depang, who had been bowing at the door, knelt on the ground with a thud. A second later, Wang Depang's face paled as he shouted, "Lord Yu of Beach, please spare my life. This lowly one won't dare, won't dare." It was clear that Wang Depang was frightened by Yi Chen's lack of response. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but frown. Then, he said, "Don't do it again. Call them up. Many thanks to you of Beach for not killing me. Many thanks to you of Beach for not killing me." Wang Depang cried tears of joy when he heard this. He then excitedly kowtowed and shouted. After kowtowing 3 times in a row, Wang Depang stood up and hurriedly went downstairs. When he arrived outside the inn, Wang Depang's face was ashen as he looked at the players who had given him gold coins to pass on the message. He then shouted, "Lord Yu of Beach wants you to go over." Wang Depang had nearly been scared to death. Now that he saw the players who had nearly punished him, how could he be happy? When the players heard Wang Depang's words, they couldn't help but be stunned. Some of them frowned, some ignored him, and some took out their weapons and pointed them at Wang Depang. Wang Depang, who had wanted to continue venting his anger, suddenly shuddered. He then raised his voice and screamed, "Help! Someone's killing me!" When the players who had just taken out their weapons heard this, their expressions changed. They hurriedly put away their weapons and walked toward the inn without looking at Wang Depang. This was Luoyang. They were players without official positions or titles. If they dared to cause trouble on the streets, they would definitely be arrested. If they dared to make a move, they would definitely be killed. Thinking of this, the players who had taken out their weapons hurriedly put away their weapons. Moreover, they put away their weapons in an extremely sullen manner. After all, they were players. As players, they should be unrestrained. If they wanted to kill someone, they should kill someone. If they wanted to set a fire, they should set a fire. However, the reality was that they were being restrained. How could they not be sullen? Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do. Although this was a game world, it was a real game world. If they violated the laws of the Great Han Empire, they would be severely punished. At least you know your place. When Wang Depang saw this, he let out a sigh of relief. Then, he arrogantly roared. When the players who wanted to pay respects to Yi Chen saw this, the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Then, they all walked toward the inn. At the entrance of the sky room of the inn, when the players who wanted to pay respects to Yi Chen arrived, they looked at each other and bowed to Yi Chen. "Greetings to you of Beach." Chapter 569. The players bowed to Yi Chen. Naturally, they were unwilling to do so. After all, they were people from the real world. It was impossible for them to be accustomed to ancient etiquette. However, they had no choice. The game world was very realistic. It was so realistic that even if they were unwilling, they had to do so. This was because Yi Chen was the Yu of Beach of the Great Han Empire. He had a noble status, while they were just commoners. As long as they were in the game world, they had to pay their respects. Otherwise, they would be cruelly punished. Of course, it was fine when there were no natives around Yi Chen. However, the crux of the problem was that Yi Chen was too powerful. He was so powerful that these players couldn't even straighten their backs in front of Yi Chen. Even if each of them had considerable power and were dragons among men, it was useless. Yi Chen's tyrannical and domineering nature was well known. In front of Yi Chen, they had no right to be arrogant or act pretentious. Therefore, even if they were unwilling, they had to lower their heads in front of Yi Chen. When the players finished paying their respects and raised their heads to look at Yi Chen, they were all stunned. Then, they looked at Yi Chen's 2 sides in unison. They saw the 200 boxes that were neatly arranged. In the next second, the sound of people sucking in cold breaths of air could be heard. SSS! The eyes of the players widened as they stared at the 200 boxes. At this moment, the players weren't noobs. How could they not see the rare treasures in the game world? If the boxes were closed, it wouldn't be a problem. However, the boxes were pushed open by the rare treasures. Every box revealed a portion of the rare treasures. The dazzling radiance couldn't be ignored. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that the players knew the value of the rare treasures. The total value of the 200 boxes of rare treasures could be guessed with a simple calculation. It was because they could see the shocking value of the 200 boxes of rare treasures that the players were shocked. Of course, most of the people were shocked. There were still some people who didn't pay attention to it after a glance. For example, the leader of the League of Tyrants, Luo Batian, the leader of the Money Sect, Shun Wansan, the leader of the Nangong family, Nangong Shursan, and Gongsun Jingxiong from the Gongsun family. Yi Chun glanced at the players who were attracted by the 200 chests. He curled his lips in disdain and asked, "What are you doing? What is it?" It was impossible for these players to suddenly pay him a visit without a reason. Yi Chen wasn't too sure about their intentions, but Yi Chen didn't want to waste time with these players. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have asked directly. The gamers at the entrance were stunned when they heard Yi Chen's question. They did not expect Yi Chen to be so direct. What was even more ridiculous was that Yi Chen did not even have the intention to let them in. At this moment, the gamers standing at the entrance were displeased. F***ck, I know you're awesome, but you don't have to be like this. That was what the gamers at the entrance were thinking. Of course, no one dared to mock Yi Chen because they were afraid. To be precise, they were afraid that they would be killed by Yi Chen. After all, ever since the game started, Yi Chen had never been nice to players. Moreover, most of the time, he would just kill them. He didn't care about feelings or reason at all. He was so domineering that it made people break down. The gamers looked at each other. Then, one of them stepped forward and bowed to Yi Chen. "You of Beach, we would like to ask if we can follow you of Beach to fight overseas after the border barrier disappears." "Yes." Yi Chen looked at the gamers and said plainly, "Yes." When the players heard this, they were all stunned. They thought about what attitude Yi Chen would have when they met Yi Chen. They also thought about how Yi Chen would respond if they asked Yi Chen if they could benefit from him. They also thought about how Yi Chen would reason with Yi Chen if Yi Chen rejected them. But what was the situation now? Yi Chen asked them what they were here for. After they answered, Yi Chen said, "Yes." Gosh, that answer was too simple and direct. They even suspected that it was Yi Chen who said it. One must know that Yi Chen had always displayed himself to be cold and tyrannical. It could even be said that he was a tyrant. But now Yi Chen didn't hesitate at all. Instead, he agreed without hesitation. This was out of the players' expectations. After regaining their senses, the players at the entrance revealed excited smiles. They then bowed to Yi Chen and said, "Thank you for your help. Thank you, you of Beach. I won't send you off." Yi Chen nodded and said. The gamers at the entrance were taken aback. Yi Chen's reply was too weird. F***ck, shouldn't you say something polite after thanking me? Yi Chen, on the other hand, immediately chased me away. The gamers looked at each other before bowing to Yi Chen and saying, "Goodbye." They left the inn one by one. Yi Chen looked at the departing players and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. They rushed over to help. Not bad, not bad. After the start of the World War, Yi Chen's goal was to destroy the foreign countries and seize the heaven and earth's fate. He was eager for others to follow him. Now that the gamers had volunteered to follow him, how could Yi Chen reject them? Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not help but smile. Then, he tried to sense the enlightenment mode that had yet to disappear. There was still more than an hour before the enlightenment mode ended. However, the eunuch would send someone to deliver the rare treasures. This was not a suitable place to use the enlightenment mode and refine the 5 elements spirit pearl. Otherwise, it would cause others to enter a state of enlightenment. He was not interested in giving others benefits for free. Forget it. If it was a waste, then so be it. However, the Tao Enlightenment Stone and the Void Stone had to be exchanged. Otherwise, there would be no place to exchange for them in 3 days. Thinking of this, Yi Chen directly looked at the war contribution ranking. Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he saw the 14-digit number on the war merit list. Then, he looked at the exchange list on the war merit list. In the next second, Yi Chen locked onto the Enlightenment Stone. Enlightenment Stone. After use, enter the Enlightenment mode for 1 minute. Exchange price: 100,000 war merit point. Damn, the price was the same as in his previous life. Thinking of this, Yi Chen chose to exchange without hesitation. Ding! Player Yi Chen has chosen to exchange for Enlightenment Stones. Please choose the quantity. When the system's notification ended, Yi Chen made his choice without hesitation. All of them. In the next second, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining Enlightenment Stones. 982,821,218 pieces. When the system's notification ended, a huge mountain appeared in Yi Chen's interspatial storage. It was a mountain made entirely of Enlightenment Stones. Looking at the mountain of Enlightenment Stones in the interspatial storage, Yi Chen's lips curled up. He had enough Enlightenment Stones now. Chapter 570. 900 million Enlightenment Stones was not a small number. It was enough for Yi Chen to refine all the 5 elements spirit pearls and advance to the 5 elements divine constitution. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not have thought that he had enough Enlightenment Stones. Of course, 900 million Enlightenment Stones were enough to refine the 5 elements spirit pearls. If he included the consumption of Enlightenment Stones after ascending to the Eldritch world, 900 million Enlightenment Stones would not be enough. After all, the Enlightenment Stones were heaven-defying. Even in the Eldritch world, they were still heaven-defying. They could help Yi Chen comprehend the laws of heaven and earth faster. They could also help Yi Chen cultivate the 9 revolutions mystic art and the divine night lightning wielding technique faster. Even if he became a sage, the Enlightenment Stones could still help Yi Chen. Therefore, the more Enlightenment Stones Yi Chen had, the better. There was no such thing as having enough. At this thought, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at the merit roll. When Yi Chen saw the 16-digit number of merit points on the merit roll, the corners of Yi Chen's mouth curled up. Damn it, killing demons was indeed the most profitable thing. 99.9% of the demon race army that invaded the human realm were killed by Yi Chen. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have obtained so many merits. Of course, this was also because the demons were too cruel. After invading the human realm, they devoured players and the citizens of the Great Han Empire and quickly evolved into demons. Otherwise, Yi Chen's merit points would have been greatly reduced. After all, the merit points from killing demons were more than 10 times higher than those from killing ferocious beasts. Let's exchange for 1 million void stones first. It did not matter if they were used up or not. At the very least, it was better to be prepared. The void stones were the key to the formation disk of the heaven-level teleportation portal. Yi Chen had the heaven-level teleportation portal in both the real world and the game world. As long as Yi Chen had the void stone, he would be able to create a secondary array disk for the teleportation array and place it wherever he wanted. This way, Yi Chen's army would be able to use the heaven-grade teleportation formation to teleport to any location with a teleportation formation's auxiliary formation disk. Then, they would be able to plunder resources for Yi Chen. Whether it was in the game world or in the real world, this could be implemented. Of course, the current game world was still a beginner's area. There weren't many resources, and they were especially scattered. However, after ascending to the great wilderness, things would be different. It had to be known that there were many good things in the great desolate world. For example, ginseng that was the size of a water tank and was over 1,000,000 years old. Purple golden royal bee jelly, which could allow one to become an immortal after drinking a drop, and so on. It could be said that the chaos world was filled with treasures. That was the key to the game world. If Yi Chen ascended and set up teleportation arrays all over the Chaos World, it would be difficult for Yi Chen's efficiency of plundering the Chaos World's treasures to not increase greatly. Of course, there would definitely be danger. After all, the Chaos World was the world of the shamans and demons. Moreover, each of them was very powerful. However, no matter how powerful they were, they couldn't stop Yi Chen's determination to plunder the Chaos World's resources. After all, the more resources he plundered in the Chaos World, the faster the strength of Yi Chen's women, and Yi Chen's subordinates would increase. And this was the benefit of placing teleportation arrays all over the Chaos World. It was also applicable in the real world. It had to be known that as time passed in the real world, the heaven and earth spiritual energy would become denser and denser. All sorts of natural treasures, spiritual herbs, and spiritual plants would also increase. Moreover, the number of high-grade existences would also increase rapidly. If he didn't do anything, wouldn't he be benefiting others? As for the fact that he would be scolded as a shameless and despicable person if he stole most of the resources, that was bullsh*t. Yi Chen didn't care at all. The path of cultivation was against the heavens. If one didn't fight, snatch, or fight, then what was the point of cultivating? One could just wait for death. It was also for the sake of plundering cultivation resources in the Chaos World and the real world that Yi Chen directly exchanged for 1,000,000 void stones. Even if 1,000,000 void stones was a little too much, Yi Chen didn't care. It was better to be safe than sorry. He didn't want to miss out on some good stuff. At this thought, Yi Chen directly looked at the exchange option for void stones. Void stone, special space material. The main material for creating teleportation arrays. It can also be used to create a heaven-level teleportation array. Merit points required, 100,000. After reading the introduction of the void stones, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he clicked on the exchange option for void stones without hesitation. In the next second, the system's notification sounded. Ding! Player Yi Chen has chosen to exchange for void stones. Please select the quantity. 1,000,000. In the next second, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen. You have obtained 1,000,000 void stones. As soon as the system's notification ended, a small hill appeared in the storage space. It was a small hill made entirely of void stones. Looking at the void stones in the storage space, Yi Chen smiled slightly. Then, he clicked on the Merit Leaderboard's exchange list for Dao Comprehension Stones. Ding! Player Yi Chen has chosen to exchange for Dao Comprehension Stones. Please select the quantity. All of them. In the next second, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen. You have obtained 13,986283651 Dao Comprehension Stones. As soon as the system's notification ended, a huge mountain appeared in Yi Chen's storage space. It was a mountain made entirely of Dao Comprehension Stones. Looking at the huge number of Dao Comprehension Stones in the storage space, Yi Chen was in a good mood. In his previous life, Yi Chen had been in the game world for a long time before he found out about the secret of the Dao Comprehension Stones. Of course, when Yi Chen found out about the secret of the Dao Comprehension Stones, the secret of the Dao Comprehension Stones was already known to everyone. It could no longer be considered a secret. At that time, everyone wanted the Dao Comprehension Stones, but it was useless. This was because the Dao Comprehension Stones could not be dropped in the Eldritch world. Not only could they not be dropped, but they could not be exchanged for. And this caused the value of the Dao Comprehension Stones to skyrocket. It even broke through the sky. Unfortunately, no matter how high the value of the Dao Comprehension Stones was, no one could buy them. This was because there were not many Dao Comprehension Stones brought into the Eldritch world by players. It was also because players who had Dao Comprehension Stones were not willing to sell them. It was also because of this reason that Yi Chen had made up his mind before the Golden Turban Rebellion and the Shifter Invasion storyline started. He wanted to crazily farm for battle achievements and merit points. As for his goal, it was to obtain as many Dao Comprehension Stones as possible. In the end, Yi Chen succeeded. He obtained a huge amount of battle achievements and merit points. Then, he exchanged for more than 14.9 billion Dao Comprehension Stones, which was enough to shock the world. Of course, Yi Chen would not reveal this number. Making a fortune in silence was the way of the king. However, this did not hinder Yi Chen's joy. Thinking about it, it was easy to imagine how much 14.9 billion Dao Comprehension Stones was and how long it could support Yi Chen. Even if the players of the Eastern region exchanged their war merit, and so on for Enlightenment Stones, they would not be able to compare to Yi Chen's Enlightenment Stones. Of course, no matter how few Dao Comprehension Stones the players had, Yi Chen would not give them up. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not have held an auction and specially designated Dao Comprehension Stones as the currency. Chapter 571. Of course, even if the players didn't have enough points to exchange for Enlightenment Stones, it didn't matter. As long as they had elixirs, they could still participate in the auction. In short, Yi Chen wanted to take advantage of the fact that the players hadn't completely risen to power to sell all the equipment and skills that were considered trash to Yi Chen. Then, he would earn the most value. Who knew how much profit he could make from this auction? No matter how much he made, he would still make a profit. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. At this moment, the players exclaimed on the street outside the inn. Gosh! What's going on? Are those the royal guards? Why are there so many of them? That's right, it's the royal guards. I've seen them from afar before. Could it be that a relative of the royal family is coming? Or is there a court criminal here? What relative of the royal family? When the royal family travels, they use carriages to transport goods. That's King degrading. Gosh, what's going on? Why are there 200 carriages and 10,000 royal guards? How the CK would I know? But it looks like they're coming for the inn? Yi Chen heard the exclamations of the players on the street. He used his divine sense and couldn't help but smirk. This little eunuch's efficiency was pretty good. He found a carriage to transport the rare treasures so quickly. He even brought the imperial army over. On the street outside the inn, the little eunuch, who had just left, was leading 10,000 royal guards and 200 carriages towards the inn. Just as the players were discussing fervently, the players who had paid Yi Chen a visit and received an affirmative answer from Yi Chen walked out of the inn. The players' discussion stopped abruptly. Then, they hurriedly looked at the players who were leaving the inn. Their gazes were strangely identical. They looked as though they were asking for an answer. At this moment, the leader of the forces who had left the inn coughed a few times. Then, he looked at the players on the street and shouted, "Lord Yu of Beach has agreed." His words instantly ignited the enthusiasm of the players who were waiting on the street. CK. I knew that boss Yi Chen wouldn't refuse. Ha ha. This is too King awesome. This way, once the border barrier is removed, we'll be able to follow boss Yi Chen. That's true. Boss Yi Chen is a man of his word. I wonder which country boss Yi Chen will attack first. I hope it's me from Japan. Korea is fine too. Oh yes, India is fine too. Just as the gamers were cheering enthusiastically because of Yi Chen's affirmation, a cold bellow was heard. Those who are not involved in this matter, retreat quickly. Otherwise, we'll kill without mercy. The one who shouted was the leader of the 10,000 royal guard. His voice was cold, but of course, it was filled with arrogance and disdain. It was obvious that the leader of the royal guards looked down on the players standing on the street outside the inn. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spoken with such a tone. When the players heard this, their expressions turned ugly. Unfortunately, no one dared to respond to the leader of the royal guards. This was because the players were very clear about one thing. This was Luoyang, the capital of the great Han Empire. The royal guards were directly under Lu Hong. If they dared to go against the leader of the royal guards because of their displeasure, they would definitely be killed on the spot. Moreover, their levels would be directly reset to 0. Therefore, the players left the inn one by one after feeling displeased. Not long after, the young eunuch led the 10,000 royal guards and 200 carriages to the entrance of the inn. The owner of the inn, Wang Depang, who had run to the street after being dodged by lightning, hurried forward to greet them. The young eunuch glanced at Wang Depang arrogantly, then handed the task of delivering the message to Wang Depang. In the sky room of the inn, Yi Chen retracted his divine sense and looked at the door. In the next second, Wang Depang's voice was heard. Lord Yu of Beech, the eunuch who left earlier has returned. He wishes to see Lord Yu of Beech. When Yi Chen heard this, he raised his eyebrows and said, "Let him in." Yes, Lord Yu of Beech. When the owner of the inn heard this, he hurriedly bowed and went downstairs to deliver the message to the young eunuch. Not long after, the young eunuch led a group of royal guards to Yi Chen's room. As soon as he appeared, he bowed to Yi Chen with a fawning expression. This servant pays respects to Lord Yu of Beech. The royal guards who had arrived at the inn simultaneously bowed to Yi Chen's door and loudly said, "We pay respects to Yu of Beech." Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Then, he looked at the young eunuch and said, "It's already late. Quickly transport them to the imperial palace and hand them over to His Majesty." Yes, Lord Yu of Beech. When the young eunuch heard Yi Chen's words, he immediately beamed and bowed. Then, he shouted to the royal guards who had arrived at the inn, "Hurry up and move the boxes. Hurry up and move the chest. Remember, I have to be gentle with them. If you break even one of them, you'll have your entire family executed." Yes, eunuch. When the leader of the royal guards heard this, he hurriedly cupped his fists and replied. Then, he raised his right hand and shouted, "Hurry up and move the boxes. Quickly go and carry it. Remember not to disturb the Ghost King." Yes, leader. When the royal guards who had arrived at the inn heard this, they hurriedly bowed in response. Then, they carefully entered the door and began to move the 200 boxes in the hall in pairs. At this moment, the young eunuch arrived at Yi Chen's side with a fawning expression. He secretly looked around and then quietly said to Yi Chen, "Lord Yu of Beech, Zhang Changshi asked me to pass on a message to Lord Yu of Beech. The date of the wedding between Princess De Qiao and Princess Changel Xiao Qiao has already been set. It will be in 3 days. If Lord Yu of Beech does not have any important matters, do not leave Luoyang for the time being." Hearing this, Yi Chen stared blankly for a moment. Yi Chen had not expected that the wedding of Princess De Qiao and Princess Changel Xiao Qiao would take place so soon. Of course, Yi Chen did not care about this. If possible, Yi Chen would have preferred it to be a day or two earlier. This way, Yi Chen could directly get married and then leave Luoyang with De Qiao and Xiao Qiao. After all, the protective barriers of the safe cities in the real world were about to disappear. Yi Chen would definitely have to return to the real world for a while. This way, he would be able to make preparations for his safety. Apart from this, Yi Chen also wanted to conquer the underground palace before the border barrier disappeared and obtain the 9 cauldrons of the protector of the kingdom. Although this was not urgent, if it could be completed ahead of time, Yi Chen would no longer have to worry about it. Thinking of this, Yi Chen chuckled and nodded his head. He then said, "Okay." Lord Yu of Beech, after His Imperial Majesty learned of Yu of Beech's betrothal gift, he was overjoyed. He even specially instructed Zhang Changshi to find a residence for Lord Yu of Beech to use during the wedding. The young eunuch immediately beamed with joy. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.